The sleeping civilian thought experiment. In a quiet village, where nights are punctuated by the subtle hum of distant memories and soft murmurs of wind, there exists an idea that gently pushes the boundaries of what our minds accept as reality. The sleeping civilian thought experiment invites us into a universe where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, where sleep is not just a restorative act, but a doorway to infinite possibilities. In this tale, we accompany a solitary soul who drifts into the realm of dreams, a civilian whose slumber transforms into a profound journey through the layers of consciousness, morality, and fate. The experiment itself is as simple as it is evocative. Picture a person, an everyday civilian, someone without the armor of political power or military might, who falls into a deep, meditative sleep. During this slumber, the boundaries of his daily reality dissolve, leaving behind a world where questions about identity, responsibility, and the consequences of our ordinary choices come to light, much like the gentle unfolding of a flower under the early rays of dawn. In this moment, between wakefulness and dreams, the sleeping mind drifts through a tapestry woven with the threads of philosophy, ethics, and the delicate interplay of our perceptions. In one lucid vision, our sleeping civilian finds himself wandering a vast garden at twilight. The garden is neither completely real nor entirely imaginary, echoing the dual nature of sleep, where every shadow and whisper is layered with symbolic meaning. The trees, ancient and stoic, murmur stories of times long past. Each rustle of leaves offers a glimpse into the world's hidden narratives, stories of hope, despair, love, and loss, all merging into an unspoken dialogue between nature and the soul. Here, the thought experiment illustrates that even in our deepest unconscious states, the echoes of our daily lives and inner dilemmas continue to resonate. As the scene unfolds, the civilian starts encountering figures who represent various facets of his inner self. One figure, radiant and filled with a serene wisdom, speaks of the delicate balance between dreaming and awake reality. This figure underscores that even in a state of dormancy, our subconscious mind is ever vigilant, questioning whether the lines between belief and doubt might blur and whether one must choose between action and inaction. These encounters become a gentle allegory. For every choice we make in the waking world, there is a silent reaction in the hidden corridors of our mind, a dialogue that both shapes and reflects who we truly are. The sleeping civilian thought experiment thus becomes a journey into the paradoxical nature of human existence. It asks, can an individual remain entirely passive when his mind is laid bare to the vast spectrums of possibility, yet simultaneously powerful enough to reshape the world of his inner experience? By drifting in this state, the civilian is both spectator and participant in an intricate cosmic dance. It is as though the act of sleeping becomes a reflection on the inherent interconnectedness of all actions and thoughts, a silent reminder that every decision, however unintentional it might seem, contributes to the broader narrative of existence. The simplicity of the premise carries with it layers of complexity that unfurl like pages in a well-loved book. Consider the civilian's peaceful dormancy as analogous to the mind's quiet hours when we are least aware of the undercurrents of our subconscious. In such moments, our dreams may reveal buried truths, revealing our innermost fears, hopes, and dreams. This thought experiment, however, is not just a static observation of the mind in repose. It is a meditation on the active role that our rest plays in shaping our identity, much like the slow, steady pace of a river carving its path through solid rock. The unconscious mind, in its slumber, reshapes our understanding of self and world. Throughout this philosophical exploration, the concept of responsibility looms large. The sleeping civilian, though appearing passive, carries the weight of potentiality. His unconscious mind is a repository where the seeds of decisions are sown, even in the absence of mindful action. Each dream is reflective of actions that might have been taken in another time or place, an alternative timeline where the choices he did not make come to life. There lies a powerful reminder that our true selves are not only defined by our conscious actions, but also by the silent pulse of our inner contemplations. In this sense, the sleeping mind serves as a mirror where the reflections of our unspoken intentions and suppressed desires are clearly seen. The narrative weaves in other dimensions of the thought experiment, magnetic in its allure, that evoke the eternal debate between determinism and free will. Is our fate preordained by the hidden workings of our mind, or do our restless dreams signify that we harbor a secret power to influence the seemingly inevitable flow of events? In the intermingling of dreamscapes and reality, the sleeping civilian illustrates that the very act of dreaming is not passive at all. Rather, it is an active exploration of the untethered realms of possibility. The sum of our being, one might argue, lies hidden in these whispers of the unconscious, a quiet rebellion against the mundanity of our everyday uncertainties. As the dream progresses, a subtle acknowledgement arises that the lines between sleep and waking could be symmetrical mirrors reflecting different facets of the same whole. The civilian relives memories of decisions made, regrets buried deep within, and chances never taken. Each recollection carries with it a bittersweet melody, echoing the human condition with all its imperfections and unexpected beauty. Such reflections provoke a deeper consideration of hope and despair, of the transient nature of our choices, and the enduring power of our innermost dreams. One can draw an analogy to the gentle transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly, a metamorphosis not witnessed in outright defiance of nature, but rather as a quiet, inevitable recalibration of existence. Like the caterpillar's journey, the civilian's sleep embodies the transformative power of dormant time. While outwardly appearing inert, every moment of sleep is charged with the latent energy of transformation. It is here, in the interplay of rest and the profound stirrings of the soul, that the thought experiment gently nudges us to reconsider the understated moments of life that hold the greatest potential for change. Throughout the silent hours of his sleep, the civilian begins to understand that his dreams are not mere byproducts of rest, but metaphors for life's continual evolution. They become a poetic lens through which he can observe the delicate interplay between fate and free will. Each dream, each reverie, acts as a subtle yet profound reminder that behind every moment of inactivity lies an opportunity. An opportunity to revisit past decisions, to grasp the unseen threads interlacing our realities, and perhaps to discover that even in our most dormant moments, we are perpetually alive with possibility. This meditative exploration is not confined to the realm of abstract philosophy alone. It whispers practical insights for those who find themselves caught in the whirlwind of daily responsibilities. It teaches us to seek moments of stillness, to embrace the silent reflections that reside in the quiet spaces of our mind. Just as the sleeping civilian inhabits a world parallel to our own. We too harbor a hidden landscape, one that nourishes our growth, mends our wounds, and seeds our dreams, quietly revolutionizing our very sense of being. In taking a moment to truly rest and listen, perhaps one can unlock not only the fresh perspectives of the subconscious, but also the courage to turn revelations into tangible realities. In the end, the sleeping civilian thought experiment illuminates an essential truth: that our lives are ever more vibrant when we understand that even in moments of rest, our inner worlds are active, crafting the silent symphony of our destiny. The experiment gently prods us to acknowledge that our potential is boundless, woven into every instant of sleep, every lingering thought, and every forgotten dream. It invites us to live more mindfully, savoring the quiet intervals where our spirit speaks the loudest. In this mysterious and poetic encounter with our hidden selves, the courage to pause and reflect becomes a revolutionary act, a testament to the quiet resilience within us all. As we navigate through the complexities of life, let us remember that beneath the surface of our daily routines lies a vibrant tapestry of dreams, waiting to awaken the sleeper within and guide us towards a deeper, more enlightened appreciation of our existence. The problem of temporary intrinsics. In a quiet, reflective evening, filled with the soft murmurings of a distant cityscape, we find ourselves pondering an elegant enigma, a puzzle that dances at the very crossroads of permanence and change. At the heart of this puzzle lies the concept of temporary intrinsics, a term that, like a gentle whisper, invites us to explore the flickering properties of things that seem to inherently belong to an object yet shift and wane over time. Consider for a moment the delicate bloom of a flower at dawn. In the cool morning light, the flower exudes an innate fragrance, its petals gently unfolding in harmonious synchronicity. This fragrance, while intrinsic to the blossom at that moment, is not a fixed property that remains throughout its existence. As the day unfolds and the sun moves steadily across the sky, the scent transforms subtly, merging with the warm air and eventually dissipating into memory. Here, we encounter the idea that what might be seen as an essential quality of something, the very essence that seems to define it, can in fact be fleeting, mutable, and bound by the rhythms of time. At the core of the problem of temporary intrinsics lies a tension between the idea of an object's permanent identity and the transient nature of its particular characteristics. Philosophers have long debated whether certain intrinsic properties can be said to belong permanently to objects, or if their very nature is ephemeral, subject to the whims of time and context. Imagine a melody played on a grand piano. The notes, though initially vibrant and clear, eventually fade away, leaving behind only the silent echoes of their former presence. Is the melody an intrinsic property of the piano, or merely an ephemeral bridge connecting moments in time? As we wander further into this conceptual landscape, let us consider an old, well-worn book resting on a windowsill. With every beam of sunlight that filters in, the color of its cover subtly shifts, its texture evolving imperceptibly. These changes do not alter the book's core identity. The stories, the ideas, and the wisdom contained within remain intact. Yet, the observable qualities that we might have once used to define the book, a crisp cover, uniform binding, are in constant flux. In this narrative, the temporary intrinsics represent the mutable qualities that, although intrinsic at one moment, gradually transform and give way to new forms of expression. They are like footsteps on a sandy shore, momentarily etched in place, only to be washed away by the tide. Throughout history, many thinkers have wrestled with the concept of temporary intrinsics by drawing insights from everyday experiences. Take, for example, the cycle of a day itself. The sky, vibrant with hues of oranges and pinks during sunrise, evolves into a brilliant blue at noon before gradually surrendering to the dusky purples of twilight. The color of the sky is an intrinsic property of our natural world, yet it is in perpetual metamorphosis, hinting at a deeper truth, that intrinsic properties may be defined less by their permanence and more by their participation in an unending process of becoming. In a way, the sky's colors remind us that change is not the enemy of identity, but its very medium. One might also recall the simple act of a candle burning at night. At its inception, the candle's flame is robust, a steady beacon of warmth and light. With each passing moment, the wax melts, reshaping the candle's form and altering the nature of its glow. The flame, in its gentle flickering, possesses an intrinsic beauty, yet that beauty is transient, ever shifting in response to the currents of air and time. This ephemeral nature challenges our desire to locate a static, permanent essence in what we observe. Instead, it encourages us to embrace the fluid and temporally bound characteristics that constitute its real, though transient, state of being. The philosophical allure of temporary intrinsics lies in the interplay between essence and appearance. When we speak of something as intrinsic, we often imagine a quality that is deeply woven into its nature, unperturbed by the external currents of time. Yet, as the case of the candle's flame, or the shifting bloom of a flower suggests, the very qualities we hold as intrinsic may only be snapshots, brief instants captured in the continuum of change. They are like reflections on water that shimmer with clarity before being gently distorted by the inevitable movement of the currents beneath. This delicate interplay invites us to approach reality with a spirit of humility and awe. It reminds us that the world is not frozen, static, or completely knowable. Rather, it is alive with subtle shifts and ephemeral wonders. In moments of quiet introspection, as we sit by a window and watch the world transform under the relentless passage of time, we might begin to see ourselves in the same light. Our emotions, our thoughts, and even our very identities are composed of countless transient moments. Each fleeting emotion or sudden insight is a temporary intrinsic quality, a spark of what makes us who we are in that particular moment before evolving into something new. A poignant example of temporary intrinsics can be observed in the realm of human relationships. Consider the bond between two people who share a deep connection. Their fleeting glances and whispered confidences might seem to capture the essence of their friendship or love. Yet these moments, while intrinsic to their shared experience, are not immune to the passage of time. The qualities that initially brought them together may subtly transform as they navigate the complexities of life. What once defined their connection at a specific moment might give way to new layers of meaning and understanding. Here, the intrinsic nature of their connection is not a static blueprint, but a fluid, evolving tapestry woven over the course of time. In another vein, think of the timeless practices of art and music. A painting, for example, holds within it an intrinsic quality of beauty, a harmony of colors, lines, and textures that resonates deeply with the observer. Yet the experience of viewing that painting is necessarily temporal. The mood of the daylight, the perspective of the viewer, and even the passage of time since the work was created all lend a certain fluidity to its intrinsic appeal. The temporary intrinsics of the artwork, then, are not diminished by their fleeting nature. Rather, they are imbued with an added depth, a reminder that beauty, like all things in life, is a transient gift to be savored. Philosophers who have grappled with temporary intrinsics remind us that the quest to capture the eternal essence of a thing may be as elusive as grasping the wind. Every quality, every perception we form is inherently bound up with the passage of time. The challenge, then, is to appreciate these qualities in the fullness of their temporary splendor, acknowledging both their impermanence and their vital contribution to the ever-evolving tapestry of existence. We might say that temporary intrinsics are like verses in a grand poem. Each line, each word is imbued with meaning for that fleeting moment, yet no single verse can fully capture the enduring spirit of the whole lyrical narrative. It is this paradox that both challenges and inspires us, the recognition that the core of our understanding may never be static, but must remain open to the continuous unfolding of moments and experiences. In embracing this perspective, we learn to see beauty in the transient. Instead of mourning the inevitable loss of a fleeting moment, we come to celebrate the nature of change itself, recognizing that every temporary intrinsic carries within it the seeds of its own transformation. Just as the flower, the sky, the flame, and even our human bonds evolve with time, so too does our understanding of reality expand and deepen. Thus, the problem of temporary intrinsics is not a challenge to be solved by freezing the world in a single, unchanging frame of reference. Rather, it is an invitation to journey into the heart of change, to appreciate the delicate balance between what is and what is becoming. It calls on us to attend to the subtle dance of qualities that, while fleeting, illuminate the grand and intricate design of existence, a design that is at once ephemeral and eternal, ever in flux and ever profoundly beautiful. In the end, the riddle of temporary intrinsics becomes a metaphor for life itself, a constant reminder that our identities, experiences, and the intrinsic qualities we hold dear are all part of a dynamic, transient process. As the currents of time gently reshape our understanding and our world, we are invited to flow with them, to savor each shifting moment, and to find beauty in the perpetual motion of being. The mere addition, paradox, repugnant conclusion. In a quiet room filled with the soft murmur of a midnight breeze, our thoughts often wander to the curious intersections of ethics and numbers, where a paradox rests that is both intriguing and unsettling. The mere addition paradox, often recognized as the repugnant conclusion, invites us to wander along a winding path of philosophical challenges that question our deepest intuitions about what it means to live a life that is worth living. At first glance, it might seem as if adding even the smallest glimmers of good life to an existing population should enhance the overall value of that population. But when we allow our reasoning to probe deeper, we arrive at an unexpectedly disquieting conclusion. Imagine a vast field under a starlit sky, where each star represents a life. These stars, like individuals, may shine brightly or faintly, yet they are all part of the same magnificent tapestry of existence. Now, consider that a society of individuals might be judged based on the well-being of its inhabitants. Philosophers of population ethics have long grappled with how to measure this societal worth, often weighing the quality of life against the sheer number of lives present. The mere addition paradox challenges the idea that simply adding more lives, even ones with lives barely worth living, always contributes positively to the overall value of a society. Picture a serene village with a handful of people living lives of exceptional quality, a symphony of experiences that resonate with joy, fulfillment, and a profound sense of meaning. The moral allure of this village is clear. Living well matters immensely. However, let us extend our imagination to include additional people whose lives are not as flourishing. Perhaps their days are filled with only the barest existence, teetering on the edge of barely permissible quality. Counterintuitively, if we continue to add such lives, this peaceful village may morph into a vast, populous society in which the average quality of life is lower. Yet the total happiness, summed across millions, might paradoxically appear greater than it was with fewer, happier individuals. This is the poignant and perplexing heart of the repugnant conclusion. As we traverse this philosophical landscape, envision the river of life that meanders through the countryside. On one bank, there is a community where each person lives a fulfilling existence, vibrant and meaningful, a narrow but deep river of contented souls. On the opposite bank lies an expanse that spans miles, where individuals live lives of minimal quality, not marked by suffering, but also lacking in significant fulfillment. A strict utilitarian calculation might suggest that the vastness of the population, despite being made up of many lives that are only barely worth living, might eventually aggregate into a larger sum of overall positivity than the smaller, higher quality community. It is a mathematical reasoning that feels at odds with our most heartfelt intuitions. We hesitate to accept that adding many minimally happy lives could ever be seen as a moral improvement over a few profoundly happy ones. Our mind naturally grapples with the image of a balance, a scale measured in units of happiness where we try to reconcile the mass of existence with the luminous quality of individual moments. The mere addition paradox is a reminder that when scales tip by a factor of sheer numbers, our moral instincts might lead us into a realm where we are forced to choose between a market of quality and a multitude of quantity. And somewhere in this delicate balance lies our unease. The idea that a world filled with billions of barely tenable lives could be considered better in a utilitarian sense than one with a considerably smaller but far richer tapestry of human experience. This metaphysical conundrum is not simply a numerical puzzle, but a dialogue between our hearts and our rational minds. The paradox asks us, should we value the intensity and quality of lives, or should we give weight to the overall aggregated good? One way to see the conflict is by considering a fable of two kingdoms. In the prosperous kingdom, each citizen enjoys a vibrant life filled with art, music, warm familial bonds, and the thrill of meaningful work. In contrast, the neighboring realm has embarked on a pursuit to maximize the sheer number of citizens. At first, it sounds like a noble ambition to extend life to as many as possible. Yet, as decades pass, those citizens lead lives that are barely worth living. Their days marked by routine survival, with little in the way of true satisfaction. In numerical terms, the populous kingdom appears greater because of its larger aggregate of happy moments, even if each moment glows just dimly. This is the harsh challenge posed by the mere addition paradox, reminding us that numbers can whisper truths that conflict with the normative light of lived experience. Philosophers like Derek Parfit have been instrumental in bringing such puzzles to the surface, encouraging us to confront the unsettling implications of certain ethical theories. They show that our traditional, perhaps more intuitive, approach to moral reasoning can sometimes be overturned by a rigorous, quantitative examination. If we subscribe to a utilitarian perspective, then the overall sum total of happiness, even if it comes from adding lives of minimal value, could indeed outweigh a smaller total coming from fewer, yet higher quality lives. The implication is not trivial. It forces us to ask what exactly matters in our lives and what should guide our moral decisions. Does the worth of life come solely from its quality, or does the sheer number of lives matter in a way that is just as significant? To traverse further into this terrain is to acknowledge that our philosophies must sometimes embrace humility. The mere addition paradox teaches us that clean, logical calculations might lead to conclusions that feel repugnant on an emotional, almost instinctive level. The lesson is an invitation to refine our moral theories so that they resonate not just with systematic logic, but also with the compassionate intuitions that underpin our humanity. Balancing these two modes of thought, one that is precise and numerical, and another that is warm and subjective, is akin to tuning an instrument so that it can produce both scales of melody and harmony. We might draw an analogy from the world of art. Consider a painter who uses a palette of colors to craft a scene. In this artist's repertoire, depth and nuance are achieved not merely by the abundance of a particular hue, but by the intensity and interplay of varied tones. Similarly, in the picture of a fulfilled society, it is not enough to simply count the number of lives. Our collective picture must also consider the vibrance of each life. The paradox, then, becomes a call for an enriched ethical outlook, one that can honor both the beauty of quality and the virtue of quantity without letting one override the other unjustly. The journey through this thought experiment is not an attempt to resolve the paradox in a neat, final manner. Rather, it is an invitation to linger in the space of wonder and uncertainty, where each question deepens our understanding of what it means to care. It shows us that even in the realm of numbers and ethics, life is more than the sum of its parts. Our intuitions, those heartfelt pulses of conscience, remind us that a life worth living must be filled with meaning, a lesson that remains stubbornly resistant to the reductive charms of utility calculus. Yet, as we continue our quiet contemplation, we must ask ourselves, how do we reconcile the elegance of arithmetic with the messy vibrancy of human existence? The answer, if it exists at all, might be found in creating ethical theories that are as multidimensional as the lives they seek to evaluate. Acknowledging the repugnant conclusion is not a statement of surrender to cold numerical logic. It is a clarion call for a deeper, more nuanced moral philosophy, one that recognizes both the quantitative and qualitative dimensions of life. In this peaceful midnight reflection, let us remember that our journey through these philosophical puzzles is not about finding easy answers, but about embracing the complexity that makes our moral landscape so rich. Here, in the interplay between logic and intuition, between the allure of numbers and the softness of lived experiences, lies the true challenge and beauty of the human condition. The mere addition, paradox, with its unsettling implications, prompts us to look beyond simple calculations and to search for a wisdom that marries the exactitude of ethical principles with the tender cadence of a life well lived. Thus, as we stand at the crossroads of numbers and values, we are reminded that every addition, every extra life brought into existence, carries with it a story, a spark of human hope, and sometimes a silent caution about the grand equations we use to measure what it means to flourish. The paradox whispers to the philosopher and the poet alike, beckoning us to craft theories that do justice to both the quantitative and the qualitative, inviting us always to see beyond the straightforward tally of lives. It nudges us to cultivate an ethical vision that is as gentle as it is rigorous, as embracing of the vast potential of human experience as it is wary of simplistic conclusions. In the end, the journey through the mere addition paradox is as much a meditation on the nature of value as it is a celebration of life's intricate tapestry. In the interplay of numbers and narratives, we find a reminder of our humble place in a grand universe. A universe where, even in the face of seemingly repugnant conclusions, the quest for a deeper, truer understanding of what it means to live remains ever vital. In the quiet interplay of our thoughts, the paradox endures as both a challenge and an inspiration, a marker for the paths yet to be explored in the continuous quest to reconcile the mathematics of well-being with the poetry of existence. The problem of the criterion. In the gentle twilight of thought, when curiosity whispers softly in the corridors of the mind, there emerges a question as old as philosophy itself. How do we know what we know? The problem of the criterion stands at the crossroads of our understanding, inviting us to explore the delicate balance between the means of acquiring truth and the marks by which we judge it. As we wander through this labyrinth of reasoning, imagine sitting by a quiet stream where each ripple carries a hint of mystery, and every reflection reveals something new about the self and the world. The journey begins with two intertwined questions that seem to tug at one another, like twin vines. One asks, "What do we know?" while the other pleads, "How do we know it?" In our pursuit of understanding, we strive to establish criteria, standards that can reliably distinguish truth from falsehood. Yet here lies the paradox. To establish these criteria, we must first have something that is already recognized as true. But without the criteria, how may we even recognize truth? This circular dance, reminiscent of a waltz where each step depends on the previous one, illuminates the inherent challenge of defining a method or rule for distinguishing between what is real and what is illusion. To delve deeper into this mystery, let us imagine a storyteller seated in a dimly lit room, with shadows dancing lightly against the walls. They speak in a voice that is both calm and compelling, as they recount a tale from a distant village where the people depended on a particular star for guidance. This star, shining steadily in the sky, was believed to be their guide in moments of uncertainty. However, when a new comet streaked across the heavens, the villagers were faced with a dilemma. Should the comet be trusted as a new guide, or should the enduring star continue to serve as their beacon? Here, the villagers encountered the essence of the problem, choosing a reliable criterion for trust and truth. Should their belief be based on tradition, something that had proved dependable over time, or should it embrace the new, sparkling promise of change? Their deliberation is akin to our philosophical pursuit, a negotiation between what has been trusted and what might be newly discovered. In our quest for understanding, we often rely on sensory experiences and accumulated evidence. But the problem of the criterion reminds us that even our senses can be deceptive, painting the external world with shades of uncertainty. Think of a painter working on a canvas, mixing colors and strokes with the hope of capturing the essence of a sunset. Can the painter be absolutely certain that the hues they blend perfectly mirror the vibrant truth of reality? Or is the creation itself simply a reflection, influenced by the subjective filters of emotion and memory? The painter's dilemma illustrates a central point. Our interactions with the world, no matter how heartfelt or earnest, are inevitably mediated by processes with their own internal biases. The criterion by which we judge what is true must account for this inherent mediation, a task that remains elusive even as we continue to search. Beyond our sensory experiences lies the realm of reasoning and logic, where the problem of the criterion takes on yet another dimension. Consider an ancient scholar seated beneath a venerable tree, engaging in a gentle conversation with a wise companion. The scholar asserts that certain principles of logic, say the law of non-contradiction or the law of identity, are self-evident truths. But the wise companion gently nudges the conversation. If these principles are to be trusted as self-evident, on what grounds are they considered so? Do they have a criterion that validates them independently of our experience and thought? In this exchange, we see the second face of the problem, the reliance on assumed self-evidence, which itself demands justification. This dialogue between reason and its own assumptions lays bare the circularity that torments seekers of truth. Each step in the chain of reasoning calls upon a foundation that, paradoxically, is built from the results of that same reasoning. One may draw comfort from thought experiments like that of building a bridge across a vast, murky river. Imagine setting out to construct a bridge where both sides of the river represent our initial evidence and the criteria we use to evaluate this evidence. On one bank, one looks to gather stones, facts, observations, and experiences to support the bridge's structure. On the opposite bank, one gathers mortar, conceptual frameworks, and reason to cement those stones together. But here arises a profound question. Which bank should be trusted first? Without a criterion, the stones may remain as scattered fragments, and without a reliable way to choose them, the mortar might dissolve in the face of doubt. The very act of bridging the gap between sensory input and rational thought becomes a quest in which the criterion itself dwells in uncertainty. As we meander further down this reflective path, consider the rich tapestry of history where various philosophers, both ancient and modern, have attempted to tame this problem. Sextus Empiricus, for instance, challenged the very notion of a fixed standard by arguing that even the most cherished beliefs could be doubted. His skepticism was not merely an exercise in contrariness, but a profound reminder of the ever-present twilight between certainty and doubt. Later, thinkers like Descartes, in his famous methodological skepticism, embraced the challenge by stripping away assumptions to discover an indubitable foundation. Yet even Descartes, I think therefore I am, left open the intricate puzzle of how to build a criterion from such a self-known axiom. His declaration, both revolutionary and fragile, underscores a truth that resonates with our own uncertainties. In our modern age, where information cascades ceaselessly through digital avenues, the problem of the criterion remains as poignant as ever. Amid the vast ocean of data, each individual is like a sailor steering a small boat in a stormy sea. The instruments designed to guide us, be they algorithms, expert opinions, or traditional wisdom, are all subject to questioning. How do we choose a reliable navigation instrument when each comes with assumptions, biases, and limitations? This modern predicament is a reflection of the ancient problem, reminding us that the pursuit of truth is a timeless voyage, whether by candlelight in an old study or through the glow of a computer screen in a bustling metropolis. The challenge of establishing trustworthy criteria for understanding persists unabated. The heart of the matter is not to declare that a perfect criterion exists, but rather to acknowledge that our methods of determining truth are, in themselves, works in progress. Like a river that carves canyons through rock over centuries, our understanding is ever-changing, ever-deepening, shaped by dialogue, experience, and introspection. Every question we ask, every assumption we challenge, contributes to a slow transformation of our mental landscape. The beauty of this process lies in its humility, recognizing that while we may never stand before an absolute criterion, our journey itself enriches us with wisdom and insight. Ultimately, the problem of the criterion invites us to adopt an attitude of gentle inquiry rather than rigid finality. The world, in all its complexity, offers no simple formulas for truth. It is a mosaic of experiences, interpretations, and reflections, a perpetual interplay between what is known and the methods by which we come to know it. In this interplay, the quest for a criterion is less about reaching a final destination and more about embracing the process of exploration. Just as the soft sound of a string instrument can stir deep emotions and reveal hidden layers of a melody, so too can our meditations on truth open up new vistas of thought. In the end, by grappling with the problem of the criterion, we learn to celebrate the art of questioning. It teaches us that every belief and every method of knowing carries with it both strength and vulnerability. Our journey through this question is like walking along a moonlit path where shadows and light mingle and dance, and every step, though hesitant, is a testament to our commitment to seek, learn, and grow. Here, the criterion is not a final verdict, but a living dialogue, a conversation between the known and the searcher, between certainty and curiosity. And as we continue on this path, may we find comfort in the gentle ambiguity of life's questions, for in that ambiguity lies the endless potential for wonder, discovery, and connection. The puzzle of the self-taught learner. In a quiet corner of the mind where curiosity meets determination, there lies a tale as old as time, but reborn in each individual pursuit of knowledge. The self-taught learner embarks on a journey that blends passion with challenge, an expedition where structure is often absent, yet wonder perpetually persists. This story is woven in gentle, flowing prose, a narrative of highs and lows, revealing the puzzle of forging one's own path in learning. When we consider the self-taught learner, we are invited to examine a paradox of modern life, a spectrum where discipline intertwines with freedom, where the absence of formal instruction becomes both a blessing and a quandary. It is the story of countless evenings filled with the soft glow of a computer screen and the rustle of pages in worn books, a series of solitary endeavors that eventually accumulate into a vast landscape of understanding. At its heart, this journey is a quiet rebellion against convention, marking the intersection of experience and self-discovery. Wandering through the corridors of memory, one might recall a moment of spontaneous realization, a sudden insight experienced while probing into a subject purely out of interest. This moment, delicate yet profound, exemplifies the allure of self-directed study. It speaks to the way the mind dances freely, unshackled by rigid formats, tapping instead into a reservoir of curiosity and internal motivation. In such moments, learning becomes less an obligation and more a delightful exploration of the unknown. In the realm of self-education, every question is a stepping stone, and every answer is a gateway to further inquiry. There exists a peculiar beauty in the autonomy of choosing what to learn, a puzzle where one must determine not only the destination, but also the route taken. The self-taught learner navigates an abyss of information and often constructs frameworks that are personally meaningful. Here, the mosaic of ideas is not dictated by a prearranged syllabus, but assembled from fragments of experiences, moments of epiphany, and a lifetime's worth of small discoveries. There is a significant paradox inherent in being self-taught, the liberating yet disorienting freedom to choose. Without an established curriculum, one may find that the boundaries of knowledge blur, and the learner is confronted with the daunting task of organizing thoughts and connecting disparate ideas. This challenge is akin to wandering through an endless library, where every book whispers the possibility of learning, yet the vastness can leave one feeling adrift. The puzzle, then, is to harness that freedom without succumbing to the weight of infinite choices. Throughout history, many renowned figures have embraced this path, transcending the conventional classroom setting to cultivate their own pockets of wisdom. The self-taught journey is not confined to any one field of knowledge. Rather, it spans the arts, the sciences, and the depths of philosophy. There is an undeniable symmetry in the process, a contemplative practice where the learner converses with great minds across time, synthesizing ideas from a myriad of sources, sometimes even in opposition. This inner dialogue creates a tapestry of understanding that is uniquely theirs, a signature of intellectual independence. A curious metaphor that captures the essence of self-taught learning is that of a solitary gardener tending to a rich and varied plot. The soil represents the fertile ground of the mind, ready to receive seeds of thought. With patience and intent, the gardener plants knowledge from diverse origins, books, conversations, solitary reflections, and nurtures them over time. Some seeds sprout quickly, flourishing in the bright sunlight of clarity, while others require a slower, more deliberate care. There are seasons when unexpected weeds of distraction or doubt may appear, yet these too are part of the natural growth cycle, teaching resilience and self-care as much as any success. The intricacies of self-instruction also invite us to consider the nature of discipline, a quiet force that molds unstructured enthusiasm into purposeful effort. Unlike the regimented schedules of formal education, self-directed learning often requires crafting a rhythm that suits the learner's internal clock. This personal cadence can vary from day to day, weaving intensity with moments of reflection. It transforms the act of studying into a gentle ritual, one that evolves with time and adapts to the many facets of life. There is an art to balancing the pursuit of knowledge with the inevitable distractions and responsibilities of the everyday world. In many ways, the journey of the self-taught learner mirrors that of a wandering artist, blending strokes of insight with splashes of serendipity. There is a soulful quality to this journey that celebrates imperfection and the eccentric process of learning from one's own mistakes. Each misstep becomes less a failure and more a hint, an invitation to re-examine assumptions and tweak the approach. It is in this iterative process that the intrinsic value of learning shines most brightly, a pattern of trial, error, and gradual evolution that echoes the incremental beauty of a hand-painted masterpiece. Self-teaching is also a quiet exercise in humility. With no external markers of validation apart from one's own internal measure of progress, the learner must constantly reconcile ambition with the realization that mastery is an ever-moving target. It can be both exhilarating and daunting, this dance with one's own limitations. Each small victory inspires the next, even as gaps and uncertainties persist like shadows at dusk. Yet perhaps this very uncertainty is what fuels the creative fire, an acknowledgement that there is always more to learn, always another depth to explore. At times, the solo journey of the self-learner can evoke a profound sense of isolation, a feeling of stepping into a vast, uncharted wilderness without a guide. But in this solitude lies an incredible opportunity for introspection. The echo of one's thoughts becomes a companion, one that offers honest feedback and cultivates a self-reliant mind. There's a distinct clarity that emerges from this solitude, a mental space where distractions fade and the essence of learning is distilled into something pure and intensely personal. Moreover, the self-taught path is rarely a linear progression. It oscillates between periods of intense focus and moments of reflective pause. The transition between learning about abstract theories and practical applications can be as fluid as water, each flowing into the other in unexpected ways. Just as a river carves its own path through the landscape, so too does the learner carve out a unique narrative through the act of self-education. The journey is less about reaching a final destination and more about continually evolving and redefining one's relationship with knowledge. The beauty of being self-taught also resides in the unburdening of expectation, a freeing experience where the focus shifts to genuine understanding rather than the mere accumulation of credentials. In the absence of formal validation, each new insight is a treasure untethered by the pressures of external judgment. The drive to learn, then, becomes innately honest, a quest for truth and meaning illuminated by personal passion rather than societal recognition. This lifelong adventure of self-improvement is a dynamic interplay of risk and reward, where the challenges are often as instructive as the successes. The puzzle of the self-taught learner lies not in the absence of structure, but in the continual balance between self-discipline and creative exploration, between individual effort and the shared wisdom of countless voices from the past. It is an enduring reminder that knowledge is not a commodity to be acquired, but a living tapestry ever enriched by personal experience and reflective insight. There exists a poetic simplicity in this mode of learning, a gentle cadence that invites one to recognize the value in every step taken, regardless of how unsteady the path may seem. The self-taught journey is as much about the internal landscapes of doubt and perseverance as it is about the external accumulation of facts. It is a voyage governed by the serendipity of chance encounters with ideas, and a commitment to embrace both the peaks of epiphany and the valleys of uncertainty. In the end, the puzzle of the self-taught learner is an ode to the human spirit's boundless capacity for growth. It is an invitation to see life itself as a curriculum, every experience a lesson, and every moment a chance to rediscover the wonder of curiosity. Standing at this crossroads, one learns that the true measure of learning is not confined to textbooks or classroom walls, but is found in the persistent, courageous act of learning from one's own journey through the rich and unpredictable canvas of life.
Kripke's puzzle about belief. In the twilight of quiet reflections, there lies a paradox that dances on the edge of everyday thinking, Kripke's puzzle about belief. This puzzle, like a soft murmur in a still room, beckons us to question not only what we know, but how we know it, how our words and thoughts form the bridges between the known and the unknown. Picture a gentle evening where the mind wanders in a garden of ideas, each thought a petal unfolding the mystery of belief itself. At the heart of this inquiry is the delicate interplay between names, meanings, and what we hold to be true in our inner worlds. Kripke, with the careful nuance of a seasoned storyteller and philosopher, invites us to consider scenarios where our intuitive grasp of meaning is destabilized by the unexpected behavior of words. Imagine a tale of two friends, each carrying their own treasure trove of beliefs, yet sometimes misunderstanding each other when it comes to describing the same entity. One might say, "I believe that the famed author of the novel is brilliant," without realizing that the same individual is known by more than one name. Here lies the mystery. If one friend knows this figure as Samuel and the other as Sam, how does substituting one name for the other affect their beliefs? It is within such contexts that Kripke's puzzle blooms. The philosopher challenges the idea that if two names refer to the same person, then substituting them in any statement should leave the truth value unchanged. It appears at first that if Samuel and Sam are truly the same individual, then any proposition involving Samuel should be interchangeable with Sam. However, delve deeper into the realm of personal beliefs, and you find that this simple substitution may not hold. For instance, one might believe, "I have read a wonderful book by Samuel," while at the same time not recognizing that the author behind Sam is indeed the same majestic soul who penned that work. Such are the murky waters where belief meets language, a realm where the regular rules take on the shimmer of a different light. To illuminate this notion, let us wander further into a story. In a quaint village, a wise librarian named Miriam collected stories, philosophies, and wisdom from travelers. One day, a young poet named Eli visited the library, his eyes brimming with curiosity about the nature of identity. "Miriam," he asked softly, "if I believe in the essence of a name, do I truly know the being behind it?" With a warm smile, Miriam recounted a fable of a legendary poet, known by two names, a name steeped in formal history and a nickname that echoed affection. The villagers would often say, she explained, that the poet's work touched their souls, whether sung as the profound verses of Alexander or the gentle ballads of Alex. Eli, wrapped in attention, realized that while he adored the warmth of the poet's verses when recited in the nickname manner, he remained curious, at times even mystified, when the full weight of the formal title was invoked. His belief about the poet's brilliance had been colored deeply by the name with which he was most familiar. Herein lies the core challenge raised by Kripke. Our beliefs are not always as transparent or as fixed as they seem. In everyday speech, we operate under the assumption that names are mere tags, interchangeable when context permits us to understand that they refer to the same entity. Yet when it comes to the realm of belief, a peculiar opacity emerges. Beliefs are felt experiences, quietly subjective in nature. They are not always anchored to a logical system where replacing one name with another miraculously retains every nuance of meaning. Our minds often attach an aura to a name, a history, a set of impressions that defies the simple logic of substitution. To further unravel this inspiring knot, consider another narrative where a painter, known universally as the dreamer, spent his life painting the intangible, hope, sorrow, and wonder. His canvases carried the echo of unspoken dreams and memories. Some dreamed of him solely as the dreamer, while art critics, armed with a refined lexicon of aesthetics, might also speak of him by his birth name, a name that, to most, carried little spark. For the admirer of his art, The image conjured by the dreamer was imbued with mystery and personal reflection. Yet, when critics referred to him by his official name, the connection sometimes felt distant, as if a veil had been drawn between the essence of his artistry and the figure behind it. The substitution of his title, therefore, did not preserve the texture of the belief held by his audience. Thus, the puzzle gently nudges us. Can a belief remain intact if the words we use are swapped, even though they point to the same person? Kripke's inquiry also touches upon the intriguing concept of rigid designation. In his pioneering work, he proposed that certain terms are rigid, referring to the very same object in every possible context. This idea, while powerful in discussions about necessity and truth across possible worlds, clashes with our everyday understanding of belief contexts. The way our mind processes and encodes beliefs seems to be far more sensitive to the particular way in which information is presented. We see not just the bare object behind the name, but a tapestry of associations woven around that name, a personal mythology that resists effortless translation. Imagine a musician who cherishes an old vinyl record, a record that holds in its grooves the sound of a bygone era. To him, the record is not just an artifact. It is a portal to memories and emotions, each note a gentle whisper from the past. Suppose the musician is told that the record, celebrated in a bygone era under a different label, is the same as the one he holds dear. Despite the logical equivalence, the music's charm, its resonance with his emotions, is disrupted by the stark reminder of its past identity. The substitution, although valid in a factual sense, fails to preserve the emotional landscape in which the record exists. This illusory detachment is what Kripke's puzzle points to. Our beliefs, like the resonant chords of a cherished melody, are not mere repositories of factual data, but are repositories of meaning, laden with personal context and nuance. In the calm of reflective evenings, when our minds wander freely through corridors of memory and thought, we might come to recognize that the puzzles of belief challenge us to embrace complexity. The seemingly straightforward act of naming or referring to an entity becomes layered with subtle differences that our consciousness can neither simplify nor ignore. In our social interactions, in literature, and especially in art, such nuances are celebrated, for they enrich our experience of the world. It is this very enrichment that Kripke invites us to appreciate, a call to acknowledge that belief is not a static ledger of truths, but a living, breathing canvas, continually painted over by our experiences, emotions, and the myriad identities we encounter. Kripke's paradox, therefore, serves as both a gentle reminder and a profound assertion that the world of belief is not bound by the rigid constraints of formal logic alone. It is, rather, a domain where language and thought engage in a delicate choreography, a dance in which every step, every substitution carries the potential to transform the very essence of what we hold dear. When we come to terms with this dance, we learn to appreciate the beauty of ambiguity, the poetry of imperfect understanding, and the magic of questions that have no definitive answers. So as you let your thoughts drift like leaves on a tranquil stream, remember that the essence of belief carries with it an inherent flexibility, a responsiveness to the language that articulates it. Whether in literature, art, or the abstract corridors of philosophical inquiry, it reminds us that our inner worlds are multifaceted and rich with hues that defy uniform expression. Kripke's puzzle, with its gentle challenge to our conventional wisdom, opens a space where certainty dissolves into wonder, urging us to explore, to question, and to embrace the beautifully complex nature of what we believe. In the end, the puzzle is a celebration, a quiet ode to the mysteries of thought and the endless possibilities of interpretation. It encourages us to not only seek clarity, but also to accept the inherent enigma of our understanding. As a friend of ideas, it beckons us into a dialogue where every statement is a story, and every belief is an ever-evolving sketch. Through this reflective journey into the heart of language and meaning, we come to treasure the nuances of our inner experiences, acknowledging that, perhaps, in the tapestry of belief, every subtle thread and every intricate pattern is what makes our understanding so richly human. The lottery of birth. Sometimes, when we pause to consider the mystery of life, we stumble upon the idea that existence itself is not a matter of deliberate selection, but rather a serendipitous event, an outcome decided by the whims of fate, by a cosmic lottery drifting in the vast starry expanse of time. We are all, in some ways, winners of this inexplicable lottery, called into being without any claim on merit, inheritance, or conscious desire. The lottery of birth is an idea that challenges us to embrace the randomness of our beginnings and marvel at the interwoven tapestry of luck, circumstance, and unintended consequence that creates the unique mosaic of every life. In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and a meandering river, an elderly storyteller once recounted to a group of young listeners that every child arriving in the world was like a golden ticket randomly drawn from a magical pot. No one could predict which family would be graced with this treasure. No one could know beforehand whether the child would be burdened with sorrow or blessed with fortune. This worldview, expressed in simple yet profound language, encapsulated the belief that the lottery of birth was both an enigma and a gift, a mixture of chance and mystery that set our life's journey in motion. Even as we grow older, the echo of that childhood narrative continues to haunt our thoughts, reminding us that our place in the world was not earned. It sparkles like dew under the morning sun, a delicate moment that holds the question: if we willingly journey through life, should we not begin with gratitude for the mystery that chose us so unexpectedly? The lottery of birth adds an ever-present hum of wonder and gravity to our existence, inviting us to appreciate the unpredictable blend of circumstances that have allowed us to join this grand parade of humanity. When we gaze deeply into our own lives, we start to see that the lottery is not just about being born. It resonates with all the elements that shape our identity. Our family, our social environment, the country we come from, and even the era in which we live are all random draws in the colossal game of chance played by the universe. Each of these factors, though beyond our control, carries the power to influence our paths subtly or profoundly. It is as if our journey begins when the universe, through unseen hands, scribbles conditions that will later ripple out to form the contours of our destiny. Consider the story of a humble artist whose childhood was spent in a dusty attic in a city far from the grandeur of international art academies. This artist, like so many others, was born in the lottery of life with a set of circumstances that might have seemed less than ideal. Yet within that modest setting, there bloomed a unique beauty, a way of seeing the world that was untainted by grand expectations. The same peculiar blend of limitations and opportunities carved a path of creative expression so distinct that it resonated with people across cultures. Even what we might see as a disadvantage in the lottery of birth can turn into an uncharted strength, a hidden gem waiting to be discovered only because the lottery chose that very combination. Philosophers have long mused about the implications of being born by chance. Some argue that randomness strips away the notion of a predetermined destiny, releasing us into the world with a blank slate upon which we must write our own meanings. Yet this randomness also carries within it the seeds of responsibility, to acknowledge that while our start was unchosen, the course we follow remains ours to shape. Perhaps the beauty of life lies in this delicate balance, accepting the unpredictable lottery of birth while rising to the challenge of creating significance in every day, every moment. The lottery of birth does not just apply to individuals, but to entire cultures and nations. Imagine a society that grows rich with diversity simply because its citizens were born into a multitude of backgrounds. Each person, a bearer of unique traits, experiences, and perspectives, contributes to a vast, intricate mosaic that is greater than the sum of its parts. We witness the interplay of luck and legacy when cultures blend, when ideas and traditions clash and harmonize. In this light, the lottery of birth transforms into a celebration of difference, a cosmic roulette that, albeit capricious, cultivates a vibrant human experience. There is an inherent humility in acknowledging how arbitrarily we all come to be. In the grand theater of the cosmos, the lottery of birth reminds us that no one is inherently superior or predestined for greatness simply because of the accident that granted their life. Beauty and wisdom can emerge from even the most humble circumstances, just as the rarest and most delicate flowers spring forth in neglected corners. With every breath, we are reminded that the lottery does not favor based on merit. Rather, it opens up an unpredictable field where every life holds intrinsic value regardless of its origins. In moments of introspection, when life's challenges seem overwhelming, we might find comfort by reflecting on the lottery of birth. Understanding that our struggles, joys, and accomplishments are interwoven with chance can soften the rigidity of our judgments and expectations. It is a reminder that the difficulties faced are not burdens solely of our own making, but rather part of a grand design that is as random as it is miraculous. The lottery teaches us to view life not as a series of unfair outcomes, but as an extraordinary accumulation of happenstances that have led us to where we stand today. This perspective also invites us to reflect on the deep questions of fate and free will. If the lottery of birth leaves us with no choice in our starting conditions, then what does it mean to choose, to act, and to believe in destiny? The interplay between the predetermined and the self-made forms a paradox that continues to intrigue philosophers and poets alike. It is in our decisions, however small, that we begin to challenge the randomness. Each act of kindness, every creative venture, every moment of courage transforms the raw luck of birth into an artful narrative of personal triumph. The lottery of birth, when contemplated through a poetic lens, can be seen as a line in a grand poem, each verse representing a life, each life a verse that contributes to the collective story of humanity. Much like a poet who selects words without knowing their final impact, we find beauty in the uncertainty that accompanies every beginning. The power of this understanding lies in its ability to foster empathy. When we recognize that each person is a product of chance, we are better able to see the inherent humanity, the shared vulnerability in every soul we meet. There is also an element of playful mystery in the lottery of birth. Just as a child might delight in the random surprises of a magic trick, so too can we embrace the unpredictable turns of life. It is this magic that encourages us to celebrate every moment, each laugh, every tear, every unexpected encounter, as a gift from a universe that revels in spontaneity. The randomness that might seem harsh in one light becomes a source of wonder when seen as the very fabric that makes life artful and surprising. In essence, the lottery of birth is a meditation on chance and destiny. It urges us not to fall into despair over the randomness of our beginnings, but to rise with the grace of acceptance and the courage to imbue each passing moment with meaning. Our lives, though launched by the roll of a cosmic die, are shaped by the passions we pursue, the love we share, and the wisdom we gather along the way. Being born is inevitable and uncontrollable, but what we do with the gift of life remains a wondrous possibility, an open canvas where we paint our unique visions of hope, struggle, and joy. This idea calls upon each of us to look inward and to appreciate the serendipity inherent in our existence. It invites us to see every life story as a carefully woven tapestry of accidental wonders and intentional achievements. And perhaps, in acknowledging the lottery of birth, we are also learning to treasure the unpredictable beauty of the human journey. A journey that is both fragile and utterly mesmerizing in its randomness. In the stillness of a quiet evening, when the mind wanders and the heart softly reflects, we come to understand that being here, right now, is itself an incredible gift. The lottery of birth is a testament to the cosmic poetry that binds us all, a reminder that even if our arrival was dearer to chance, the life we lead from that moment forward can be as deliberate and as beautiful as we choose to make it. The trilemma of political philosophy, freedom, equality, efficiency. In the soft light of a quiet evening, we gather our thoughts about a fundamental dance that has echoed through corridors of power and deep discussions of human society, the intricate balance between freedom, equality, and efficiency. At first glance, these principles seem to be the shining virtues every society aspires to attain, yet, as any seasoned thinker would tell you, pursuing them simultaneously is akin to choreographing a ballet where every dancer's step risks colliding with another's. The trilemma in political philosophy, where these three values tug in different directions, invites us to embark on a journey that is both gentle in its delivery and profound in its implications. Freedom, the cherished spirit of human ingenuity, and the right to choose one's destiny, forms the first pillar of our understanding. It is the air that carries our hopes and the spark that ignites revolutions, giving birth to innovation and the pursuit of one's passions without undue restraint. In many ways, freedom is like an endless river meandering through diverse landscapes, sometimes serene and sometimes wild. Its waters nurture creativity and originality by granting each individual the room to shape personal destinies, to make mistakes, learn, and eventually refine the art of living. Yet when we speak of equality, we evoke a vision of a society where the playing field is level, a vast meadow, where every person stands shoulder to shoulder, each receiving a fair share, regardless of the starting line. Equality is not merely about equal distribution of wealth or resources. It is about fostering a culture where everyone's voice is valued equally, where opportunities are not hoarded by a few but extended like an embrace to all. It is the soft glow of twilight that promises no one is left behind, a reassurance that in the pursuit of life's the richest dreams, every soul belongs. Efficiency, then, is the steady rhythm of progress, the quiet hum of machinery working harmoniously toward a goal. It is the art of getting things done in the best possible manner, ensuring that resources are utilized in ways that produce maximum benefit. Efficiency gives structure to our endeavors. It is the discipline behind innovation, the method in managing complexities, and the promise that our pursuit of a better society is not mired in chaos, but propelled by calculated, thoughtful action. When we try to weave these three values into a single social fabric, we often find ourselves grappling with trade-offs. The more liberty we extend to individuals, the freedom to choose, to innovate, to express, a society may inadvertently allow vast inequalities to form. Not all are born with the same privileges or opportunities, and setting unbridled freedom at the forefront might leave some individuals struggling in its wake, their voices lost in the cacophony of unregulated expression or unchecked ambition. Conversely, a society strictly bent on enforcing equality might curtail individual autonomy, leading to a scenario where the drive that fuels innovation is smothered in the name of uniformity. Efficiency, too, poses its challenges. While a lean, efficient state can streamline decisions and maximize output, it might lean toward cold calculations, sidelining the softer, more human considerations of personal freedom and distributive justice. In one reflective town, Nestled quietly away from the bustle of major cities, local leaders endeavored to strike a balance. They initiated community projects where individual creativity was celebrated through local art programs and entrepreneurial hubs, while simultaneously ensuring that welfare programs provided a safety net for everyone. Yet, as resources were allocated carefully to maximize impact, a nod to efficiency, the natural ardor for unbridled freedom sometimes clashed with the need for equality. In moments of public debate, community voice rose like overlapping melodies, each advocating for an ideal, yet aware that one choice might dampen another's brightness. The challenge lay in orchestration, in finding that rare equilibrium where vibrant personal freedoms do not undermine the collective fairness and where the gears of progress still turn smoothly. Discussions of this trilemma are ancient, echoing through the halls of Plato's Academy, the deliberations of Aristotle, and the modern debates of the Enlightenment. Philosophers from different epochs have noted that these three dimensions are not completely independent. They influence and shape one another. Freedom can be the very soil from which innovation blooms, yet if left unchecked, it may lead to disparities that erode trust among citizens. Equality is the nurturing rain that helps all participate, yet too much insistence on sameness can quench the vigor of individual spirit. Efficiency is the orderly beat that organizes societal efforts, but a heart that beats only to the drum of efficiency might miss the nuanced rhythms of human needs. One may think of this as a journey across a landscape dotted with both serene valleys and steep peaks. The path of freedom is like a winding mountain trail, full of breathtaking views but also fraught with the dangers of isolation and unpredictability. The road of equality, while promising a horizon where everyone feels part of a larger whole, may necessitate roadblocks and signposts that limit spontaneous adventures, making it a safer but sometimes less exhilarating ride. Efficiency, perhaps the straightest road among the three, might offer the quickest passage to a destination, yet it can miss the scenic routes where the richness of life's unexpected encounters flourishes. In the hum of everyday politics, these ideals become more than abstract theories. They shape the policies that dictate our health, our education, our justice, and our economy. Consider debates over taxation. A fair tax system is often seen as a tool to promote equality, redistributing funds to uplift those who might otherwise be left behind. However, too steep a tax might impede the freedom to invest and innovate, which in turn could slow the overall engine of efficiency and receptivity to new ideas. This dynamic interplay reminds us the problem of pure disagreement. In the soft glow of a quiet evening, when thoughts meander like gentle streams under the moonlight, there arises a conversation not just among friends, but within the very fabric of our understanding. A conversation about how two minds, equally wise and thoughtful, can see the same sunrise yet describe it with entirely different hues. The problem of pure disagreement is one of those curious puzzles of thought, drawing us into a dance between reason and emotion, certainty and doubt. It is a notion that has its roots deep within the woodlands of epistemology, the study of knowledge itself. On one side, we have the cherished idea that when we encounter someone who is as reliable and thoughtful as we are, what many call a peer, we assume that, if we both follow the same evidence, our conclusions should harmoniously coincide like notes in a well-conducted choir. Yet, there exist moments when two peers, both bearing the torch of careful thought, step upon the same stage, and nonetheless declare different interpretations of the same play. They stand not in the cold light of dispute, but in the reflective glow of a shared wonder, perplexing them both as to how such divergence can occur. Imagine a conversation between two scholars in a small, candlelit study, where the scent of aged paper and the soft rustle of thoughts in motion are as present as the beating heart. One scholar, deeply rooted in a tradition of empiricism, sees the world through the lens of method and measurement, trusting experiments and observable facts. The other, with a more reflective soul, leans on intuition and narrative to unfold the mysteries of the universe. Both have devoted their lives to seeking truth, yet when confronted with a piece of evidence, say a historical document, an ambiguous scientific study, or an abstract philosophical argument, they find themselves at a crossroads, each taking a path that, while logically consistent for their individual styles, leads them to different conclusions. What lies in the heart of this disagreement? It is not a matter of one being misinformed or careless. Instead, it is a subtle interplay between the standards of evidence and the methods of reasoning that each deems reliable. They are peers in every sense of the word, a testament to the beauty and the challenge of intellectual diversity. Their shared commitment to truth paradoxically becomes the catalyst for their divergent interpretations. Here, the problem of peer disagreement hints at a profound question. When two equally reasonable minds come to differing conclusions, on what basis should one choose the friendlier voice in one's own head? In gentle narrative style, one might liken this situation to two painters standing before a vast canvas, each possessing a different palette of colors. Both view the same scene, a forest illuminated by the golden touch of daylight. But one paints it with warm, broad strokes, while the other prefers a cooler, more subdued gradient. Neither painter is mistaken. Rather, they interpret the same sight through differing aesthetic sensibilities, shaped by years of experience and personal inclinations. Their disagreement is not a failure of art, but an invitation to appreciate that the shimmering layers of life often defy a single narrative or a solitary truth. This phenomenon beckons us to ponder how we assess the credibility of our beliefs, especially when confronted with someone who is, in many respects, a mirror image of our intellectual best self. How do we reconcile the fact that our evidence, our reasoning, and our emotional resonance might align so closely, and yet lead us to conclusions that seem jarringly different? In the soft, reflective light of a late-night conversation, one might hear voices recounting stories of old debates, where even the most distinguished philosophers wrestled with the chasm between personal conviction and collective understanding. Consider the case of two friends discussing a contentious ethical dilemma, such as the nature of justice or the rights of an individual versus the collective. Both come armed with convictions nurtured by personal experiences, thoughtful study, and deep compassion for others. As the conversation unfolds, they discover that their moral intuitions, though both sincere and well-meaning, diverge on what truly constitutes fairness. One might lean towards retribution, believing that justice is best served by a balance of accounts, while the other leans towards rehabilitation, holding that the heart of justice beats in forgiveness and renewal. In such circumstances, the disagreement is not about the lack of insight, but about an alternative view of what constitutes the good, a problem that is all too human in its complexity. The beauty of this intellectual phenomenon is that it challenges us to hold our beliefs with a spirit of humility. It invites us to consider that certainty might be a fleeting state, one that holds room for revision and deeper reflection. When peers disagree, the scientific and philosophical impulse to question our premises is invigorated. Rather than clinging to the comfortable certainty of our own ideas, we are asked to step outside the confines of our biases and engage in a dialogue that is as much about understanding the reasoning behind another's thought as it is about solidifying our own conclusions. The conversation becomes a journey into the landscape of our own minds, where the alternatives are not threats to our wisdom, but opportunities for growth and refinement. The problem of peer disagreement also holds a mirror to the limits of human reasoning. In the gentle wheel of time, many have walked the corridors of philosophy and found that even the most meticulously constructed arguments can falter in the face of a dialectical confrontation. It reminds us that truth is not a monolithic mountain to be conquered, but a living, breathing forest, complex, layered, and sometimes mystifying. Each peer in disagreement is like a branch reaching out in a different direction, contributing to the sprawling canopy of ideas that together shelter our collective quest for understanding. One may even find comfort in the fact that disagreement with peers is a mark of intellectual vitality. It signals that we are engaging deeply with ideas instead of passively accepting dogma. In the art of discourse, encountering a thoughtful counter-argument can be like the gentle rain that nourishes the soul of a budding seed, prompting it to grow stronger and more resilient. Peers, in their respectful discord, become both challengers and nurturers, helping each other refine their thoughts and uncover hidden nuances in ideas that might otherwise remain shrouded in ambiguity. A further exploration reveals that the problem of peer disagreement is not merely confined to abstract philosophical debates or the intricacies of academic discourse. It seeps into everyday life like a quiet undercurrent, influencing how we interpret news, form opinions about politics, or even decide what path our lives should take. When we hold a belief about the world and then encounter a respected friend who disagrees, the internal dialogue can be both unsettling and enriching. The very act of reconsidering one's stance in the light of a trusted opinion can either fortify one's original belief or encourage a gently transformative shift in perspective. Such moments are humble reminders that our understanding of the world is a continuous and evolving narrative, a story that we write together as we share our doubts, insights, and dreams. Yet the path to resolving or embracing peer disagreement is not paved with clear-cut answers. It is instead a terrain where the markers of truth are often intertwined with subjective perception. Philosophers have long debated whether one should split the difference between conflicting opinions, stick to one's initial conviction, or even suspend judgment entirely. Each approach carries its own philosophical elegance and its own set of challenges, nudging us to probe deeper into the nature of belief and the ethics of persuasion. Through the lens of poetry and reflective dialogue, the problem of peer disagreement becomes a symphony of voices, each note resonating in the chambers of our hearts. It is a reminder of our shared fallibility and the potential for mutual enlightenment. In embracing the discord, we find that the interplay of reason and counter-reason is what ultimately enriches the tapestry of our collective wisdom, compelling us to remain curious, open, and kind in our pursuit of truth. Thus, as twilight gives way to the star-studded skies, we are left marveling at the beauty of diverse perspectives, a beauty that is both humbling and exhilarating. The problem of peer disagreement, far from being a harbinger of division, can be seen as an open invitation to a dialogue of souls, a chance to hold hands in the quiet understanding that, in our varied interpretations, we are all seekers of a shared elusive light. The paradox of fictional immorality. Some ideas bloom like wildflowers in the quiet evening, and among them is the curious enigma of fictional morality. Here, in the gentle embrace of a reflective narrative, we wander into the depths of our own sense of right and wrong, as we examine how feats of creativity challenge the very grounds of ethical judgment. The paradox of fictional immorality invites us to consider how, when faced with the deeds of imagined beings, we suspend disbelief yet still become entwined in a dance of moral concern. In the soft shimmer of twilight, we may observe a world where characters, though not truly alive, perform actions that repeatedly force us to ask, do these deeds hold any moral weight? Consider the tale of a brave knight flawed by his own fallacies, whose misguided journey leads him through battles and decisions that ripple with pain. Though he belongs to the realm of ink and paper, His struggles stir passionate debates about honor, sacrifice, and the burden of choices. Here the ethical lines are blurred. His actions are both celebrated and condemned, inviting us to question where true morality begins and whether it ever aligns with fiction. This delicate dance of judgment plays out on the stage of countless narratives. In the flickering candlelight of a humble study, one might recall the dark alleys of classic Gothic novels or the vivid explosions of futuristic epics, where characters engage in actions so profoundly questionable that they stir a reluctance to wholly embrace their narrative arcs. Despite our understanding that these characters do not exist in our physical reality, the depiction of their deeds can evoke feelings of sorrow, disapproval, or even a reluctant fascination. It is almost as if we, the audience, are morally implicated in their journeys, sharing in the triumphs and tragedies that unfurl before us. Consider for a moment the narrative of a notorious villain whose every calculated step is part of an elaborate plan to upend the social order. We might find ourselves hanging on every word, our hearts thrumming with the tension of looming confrontation. Yet, as the villain's machinations progress into increasingly destructive territory, a curious question arises. If a character is fictional, can we truly assign to them the weight of immorality? And if so, what does it reveal about our own inner workings when our emotions and often our judgments are stirred by events that exist solely within the realm of the imagination? The paradox emerges. On one hand, we revel in stories that explore the darker aspects of human nature, taking pleasure in a narrative that pushes boundaries and invites moral contemplation. On the other, we insist on absolving our imaginary characters from any concrete responsibility because their actions, however potent, leave no lasting stain in reality. This dissonance between our intellectual understanding and the emotional gravity elicited by a well-spun tale makes us ponder whether our ethical compasses are more flexible than we once believed. In a deep, murmuring solitude, we might recall the striking words of literary critics who have long debated the role of narrative in moral education. Stories are our mirrors, reflecting the myriad facets of human behavior back at us, from our noblest virtues to our most deplorable sins. The characters who populate these tales are neither bound by the laws of society nor by the physical limits of the world. Instead, they traverse an imagined realm where the ethics of actions can be magnified to reveal universal truths. Their journeys lead us into introspection, encouraging us to question the basis of our own moral intuitions without ever demanding that we hold them accountable in any real measure. Imagine a night spent in quiet reflection, where the only company you keep is the cascade of thoughts emerging from a beloved book. As you read of a morally ambiguous figure, someone whose choices oscillate between commendable idealism and tragic failings, you might feel an internal struggle. You recognize that the character's actions are constructed for dramatic impact, yet your emotional responses intertwine with his narrative in a manner that suggests a shared responsibility. It is in this tension that the paradox of fictional immorality becomes most palpable. We are drawn into a moral vortex, appreciating the art of storytelling while grappling with the implications of a morality that exists only in the confines of creative expression. What fuels this enigmatic duality might be found in the way stories stitch together the fabric of empathy. When we witness a fictional character commit a transgression, our minds engage in a subtle negotiation between the realms of reality and narrative. We know that the character is an intricate creation born from imagination, yet the feelings invoked are remarkably real. These emotional responses, layered with an awareness of both the futility and the necessity of forgiveness, expose the complexity of human morality itself. It is not that we desire to condemn someone devoid of life. Rather, it is the very act of confronting such moral dilemmas within a safe, imaginary environment that signals our persistent search for meaning in a world often defined by ambiguity. The philosophical reflection on fictional immorality often leads to an unsettling inquiry. If a fictional character can evoke genuine sorrow, anger, or moral outrage, may it be because the ethics we ascribe to them are really a projection of our own internal battles? Just as a painter captures light and shadow, so too does the author sketch the contours of truth and deception. It becomes a gentle reminder that concerns over righteousness and wickedness are not so readily separated from the human condition. The art of storytelling is not merely about fantasy or escapism, but also about the transformative power of narrative to tap into those often hidden parts of our psyche. We might turn our thoughts to the popular realm of film, where immense creative endeavors bring characters to life before our very eyes on the silver screen. The visceral impact that a corrupted hero or a fallen angel can have on an audience is testimony to the strength of fiction to stir passions. In such moments, the elaborate empires of real-world ethics seem to crumble, replaced by the raw immediacy of feeling, an acknowledgement that, regardless of the origin of the deeds, our human experience is inextricably linked to the ideas of justice, redemption, and the eternal quest for understanding ourselves. In a world that constantly negotiates the boundaries between the real and the imagined, the paradox of fictional immorality stands as a reminder of our inherent complexity. While we may declare that the wrongdoings of an invented narrative are harmless, the strength of those narratives is measured by their ability to unsettle us, to prompt compassion, and to pit our ideals against the backdrop of unforeseen consequences. Within the interplay between story and reality, morality reveals itself not as a fixed, immutable law, but as a fluid tapestry that is continuously woven from the threads of our experiences, expectations, and inner conflicts. Each page turned in a cherished book, each scene in a moving film, embodies this intricate interplay. Fiction becomes an arena where old dichotomies, good versus evil, right versus wrong, are re-examined and transformed. The characters, who of course are not responsible under any earthly legal code, nonetheless force us to confront the quandaries that arise from our very existence. This courageous engagement with the ethical dimensions of storytelling challenges us to accept that perhaps the division between reality and fiction is not so clear-cut after all. In the cool embrace of a late-night conversation, where thoughts and dreams intermingle like soft shadows on a wall, we come to appreciate the subtle grace that the paradox offers. The interplay between our moral perceptions and the artistic license of fiction is an invitation to explore the vast and often hidden territories of human sentiment. It is a dialogue not only with the crafted world of characters and plots, but also with the essential truths that define our lives. By standing at the crossroads of what is imagined and what is real, we learn that morality is less a rigid structure and more a living, breathing endeavor, a continuous journey mapped by both our aspirations and our vulnerabilities. This gentle reflection serves to remind us that the beauty of narrative lies in its power to be both a mirror to the soul and a window to infinite possibilities. And as the paradox of fictional immorality unfolds before us, we are left with the enduring lesson that morality, like art, is fundamentally open to interpretation, a space where empathy can flourish and where every story becomes a part of our own. The argument from illusion. The human mind is a remarkable storyteller, always weaving impressions from the raw fabric of our senses. In the gentle embrace of an evening sky or the muted whisper of autumn leaves, there lies a challenge to our faith in what we perceive as reality. The argument from illusion invites us into a realm where appearances dance mischievously at the edge of truth, questioning the nature and fidelity of our sensory experiences. At its heart, the argument from illusion draws attention to the many times our senses have led us astray. Consider the shimmering image of a mirage that appears on a hot highway. We behold an oasis that promises relief and cooling waters, yet upon closer approach, it vanishes into a shimmering haze, a play of light and atmospheric conditions creating a deceiving picture. This is not a mere trick of physics, but a fundamental window into the inherent imperfection of our sensory channels. It softly whispers that what we see may not always mirror what is, urging us to embark on a journey that carefully distinguishes between appearance and reality. In quiet moments of reflection, one might recall the subtle difference between a dream and waking life. While sleeping, our minds imagine vivid landscapes, strange creatures, and experiences that sometimes feel as real as the dawn. Yet as we awaken, we recognize that those images, however robust they seemed, were illusions, not the tangible realm of the waking world. The contrast between the vivid dream and the clear-cut day invites us to consider that our senses themselves may generate narratives that bear little correspondence to lifelike substance. Take, for example, the classic case of the bent stick seen in water. In the cool refuge beneath a tree on a lazy summer day, one may witness a stick thrown across a gently bubbling brook. At first glance, the stick appears to be broken or bent when half submerged, its body distorted by the watery medium. But a closer physical inspection reveals its true, straight form. Such everyday episodes are common threads in our collective experiences and serve as gentle reminders that our senses do not always offer an unblemished display of nature's laws. Yet, these moments also awaken our curiosity, prompting us down the path of philosophical inquiry. What is the substance of the object if not its appearance? This consideration draws us into the realm of metaphysics, where philosophers have grappled with the intricate relationship between mind and world. The argument from illusion suggests that our sensory impressions are like a painter's brush, stroking scenes upon the canvas of our mind, sometimes adding colors and forms that do not exist in the external world. This does not imply that our experiences are entirely deceptive, but that there exists often a moment of discord between the world as it truly is and the shadows cast on the cave walls of our perceptions. By highlighting these misalignments, the argument gently questions the reliability of inductive reasoning, which builds our understanding of reality by relying heavily on the senses. Imagine sitting by a quiet, fog-laden lake at dawn. The mist shrouds everything in a veil of softness, blurring edges, and diffusing light in ways that transform familiar shapes into indistinct silhouettes. In this liminal space between appearance and actuality, our minds start to perceive the world in layers, not merely as it is, but as a series of filtered images influenced by conditions, emotions, and context. The argument from illusion teaches us that our immediate experience might be a composite, an imperfect collage constructed from both the inherent qualities of the objects we observe and the subtle, often unnoticed adjustments made by our senses. Philosophers like George Berkeley and David Hume ventured into these reflective territories, questioning whether we can ever be sure that what we see is indeed the reality of the matter. Berkeley, by proposing that existence is tied to perception, argued that objects do not exist independent of the impressions they create in our minds. In his view, every object is a collection of sensory experiences, its color, texture, shape, all subjective qualities that only exist through the act of perception. Hume furthered this line of inquiry by suggesting that our habit of associating one type of sensory experience with another might lead us to form beliefs that transcend the original data provided by our senses. Their meditations on illusion invite us to be both humble and inquisitive about our own perceptions, recognizing that even the richest and most convincing images of the world may be tinged with the possibility of error. Not all illusions, however, are mere curiosities or academic discussions. They hold practical importance in lighting up the corridors of scientific and philosophical thought. Consider optical illusions, those playful puzzles that twist the rules of vision. They reveal that our brain, in its admirable quest to simplify and interpret chaotic data, sometimes makes leaps of conclusion that lead to delightful errors. In one famous illusion, parallel lines may appear to converge as they reach the horizon, a phenomenon that reveals not only the magic of perspective, but also the limits of our sensory interpretation. Each of these experiences is a subtle reminder. The mind is always actively shaping and sometimes distorting the image of reality that it receives. Thus, the argument from illusion does not condemn our senses as entirely untrustworthy, but rather it encourages a deeper inquiry into how our minds operate, how errors form, and how a refined understanding of these processes can lead us closer to what might be an elusive true reality. Within the quiet solace of personal reflection, illusions have also a poetic quality. They invite us to appreciate the beauty of uncertainty and the grace of open-minded skepticism. Imagine walking through a forest where dappled light forms intricate patterns on the ground. Here, every shadow and every glimmer of light plays a role in a grand, ever-changing artwork. We are aware that the scene before our eyes is intangibly rich, yet it subtly hints at something deeper, an underlying order that is only partially revealed by our senses. The argument from illusion gently nudges us to embrace this interplay, to see in every fleeting mirage a call to wonder and to respect the continuously unfolding mystery of existence. In many ways, the journey navigated by the argument from illusion is an invitation to a broader understanding of life itself. We come to see that our attempts to capture the absolute truth might be less about conquering nature and more about harmonizing with its rhythms. There is a beauty in the interplay between perception and reality, a dance where missteps are not failures, but subtle markers of our ongoing dialogue with the world. When we allow ourselves to acknowledge the potential for illusion, we also open our minds to new dimensions of inquiry, questioning, exploring, and ultimately appreciating the transient nature of what we consider to be real. Therefore, this argument is more than an academic abstraction. It is a meditation on our human condition. It invites us to accept that ambiguity, error, and even deception in our senses are not flaws but facets of a dynamic relationship between being and knowing. The world, as experienced through our delicate senses, is like a constantly shifting panorama painted with transient colors and shapes. Each illusion a gentle reminder that our knowledge of reality is not static, but ever evolving, swaying with the confluence of observation and interpretation. In a softly lit room filled with the quiet hum of midnight thoughts, we might lean back and marvel at the intricate workings of our mind. With every blink, every moment of hesitation before a final conclusion, we glimpse a truth that is both humbling and liberating, that our perceptions are but one facet of a profound mystery. The argument from illusion empowers us to cherish that mystery, to dwell in the interplay of light and shadow, and to continuously seek deeper understanding, even when the senses may lead us on a winding path of uncertain beauty. The paradox of analysis. In the warm glow of late evening, thoughts often drift toward the mysterious labyrinth of understanding, where clarity and confusion dance together. Our journey tonight leads us through the curious terrain of the paradox of analysis, a concept that seems simple, yet reveals complexities like the ripples on a still, moonlit pond. It is as if we are invited to savor a gentle discourse that weaves together clear thought and beautiful uncertainty, the kind that opens our hearts even as it challenges our intellect. The paradox of analysis asks, how is it that our analysis of a concept can be both faithful to its original meaning and yet so complex that it seems to hide its true nature behind layers of explanation? At a first glance, one might think that a successful analysis should simply break down a concept into its necessary components, much like separating the colors in a rainbow. Yet the paradox points out a tension. If an analysis is perfectly faithful, then every detail, every nuance of the original idea is preserved, leaving no room for something new to be explained. In other words, if analysis is completely correct, then the resulting explanation is, in essence, as complicated as the concept itself. Consider, for a moment, the experience of trying to explain the notion of freedom. Imagine you are conversing with a dear friend on a quiet night in a small cafe, and you attempt to capture what freedom means. Would you describe it merely as the absence of external constraints, or would you also talk about the internal spiritedness that comes with making one's own choices? Attempting to explain freedom in all its depth tends to lead us in circles, a circular explanation that, while true to the concept, might not bring any fresh insight. Just like a painter who mixes every color in his palette only to end up with a uniform hue, a perfect analysis risks redundancy. The puzzle here is graceful in its design. If every analysis has to be both correct and enlightening, it encounters the dilemma of either oversimplification or intricate detail. To capture the essence of what one means by a concept, the analysis needs to be precise yet approachable. Yet when an analysis is compellingly precise, it too quickly reaches the length and complexity of the original idea, leaving little that is simpler or more accessible. Throughout history, brilliant minds have wrestled with this enigma. Philosophers like Ludwig Wittgenstein and Jem Anscombe pondered the limits of language when attempting to dissect ideas. Their discussions remind us that language, with its well-worn paths of meaning and subtle undercurrents, is often both the medium of analysis and a source of the very complications that perplex us. Imagine trying to express a painter's emotion through the rigid geometry of a blueprint. It is as though the spontaneity of creativity is at odds with the rigid structure of systematic explanation. One way to approach understanding the paradox is by picturing an artist at work. This artist, endowed with a spectrum of vibrant colors, strives to recreate a sunset, a scene of exquisite beauty and fleeting grace. If he insists on capturing every wisp of cloud, every nuance of the light, his painting may become so detailed that its beauty is drowned in its own complexity. Conversely, if he simplifies the image into broad strokes and general impressions, he might evoke the sensation of a sunset without delivering a faithful representation. In this, the paradox of analysis is revealed. An analysis that mirrors every intricate detail of the original may simply restate what is already there, much like a photograph that mirrors the scene, while an approximation, though insightful, might lose something vital in its brevity. This delicate balance between accurate representation and meaningful simplification is where the beauty and frustration of philosophical analysis lie. We can think of it as a poet trying to capture the essence of a fleeting emotion. Every word the poet writes is weighed against the infinite shades of feeling that exist in the quiet corners of the heart. The process demands that each word be both a mirror of the original emotion and a window into a deeper understanding. But sometimes, the very act of describing the emotion transforms it, imbuing the original feeling with layers of reflection that might diverge from the immediacy of the experience itself. Our conversation about the paradox of analysis unfolds like a slow, meandering river. Picture the gentle current carrying reflective twigs and leaves downstream, each representing a component of truth within a larger, complex flow. The closer we try to inspect the details of each piece, the more our attention shifts from the broader, unifying picture of the river's torrent of life. This metaphor illustrates the tension inherent in seeking both detailed precision and a holistic understanding. There is a certain poetic irony in the paradox. The more we analyze, the more we realize that every act of analysis contains within it the seeds of further inquiry. Every conclusion is, in itself, a premise for another round of exploration, much like a story that never truly ends, always hinting at another chapter yet to be written. It is as if every answer births new questions in an endless dance of thought. This cycle emphasizes that deep understanding is not a static endpoint, but an ongoing process, a dialogue between what we know and what remains just beyond our grasp. An analogy that often comes up in discussions of this paradox is that of a mirror reflecting itself. Imagine standing between two parallel mirrors. The reflection bounces from one to the other, creating an infinite regression of images. Each reflection is correct, yet no single one gives you a complete picture of your true self. Similarly, a perfectly accurate analysis can lead to an infinite chain of further analysis without ever arriving at a simpler explanation. The answer remains hidden in a labyrinth of echoes, where understanding is both found and eternally deferred. In the quiet moments of reflection, especially when the world outside seems to slow down, one realizes that the paradox of analysis is not a barrier, but an invitation. It calls us to embrace the beauty of inquiry and the limitations of language. It suggests that the journey of understanding is as valuable as the destination. There is a calm serenity in knowing that some puzzles might be designed not to be solved in one stroke, but to inspire us to keep thinking, questioning, and expressing in ever more creative ways. Consider a conversation between two old friends who frequently meet for long walks under starlight. Their dialogue meanders from topic to topic, each word and pause filled with layers of meaning. When one friend tries to dissect the idea of trust, the discussion spirals into every possible nuance, from the simplicity of a child's unconditional reliance on a guardian to the deeply complex interplay of mutual respect and vulnerability between partners. The conversation does not seek a final, neat package of truth. Instead, the exploration itself weaves a tapestry of insights that, while sometimes overlapping or redundant, enrich the bond shared between the seekers. This dialogic journey in philosophy reflects the nature of analysis itself. There is beauty in the iterative process of explanation, even if it seems to circle back on itself. We can admire the craft of language and the intricate ways it attempts to mirror our inner landscapes. The paradox of analysis, therefore, becomes not just a problem to solve, but a celebration of the richness inherent in our intellectual pursuits. It reminds us that even in the pursuit of complete precision, there lies an element of art, a human touch that elevates a mere dissection of ideas into a profound and living conversation. In a world that often celebrates quick answers and simple solutions, the paradox of analysis urges us to slow down and appreciate the delicate interplay between thought and language. We learn that sometimes the process of understanding is not about stripping away layers until only a pure essence remains, but about witnessing how every layer contributes to the vibrancy of the whole. There is truth in complexity, and there is art in a truth that resists reduction. As we wander deeper into the night, reflecting on these ideas, we may come to see that there is no final destination in understanding. Instead, there is a continuous, gentle flow, a stream of curiosity that nurtures our minds and hearts. It is an invitation to keep exploring, even when the answers seem to be as elusive as catching a ray of light in our hands. The paradox reminds us that it is in this very pursuit, the unending quest for clarity, that we find meaning, beauty, and the freedom to marvel at the mystery of our own thoughts. By savoring the tension between clarity and complexity, our hearts learn to appreciate that sometimes the journey of thought is more rewarding than any final answer. Here, in this serene space where ideas intertwine like delicate vines in a twilight garden, we realize that perfect analysis might be an ever-moving horizon rather than a fixed point. And in that gentle, infinite horizon, there is both challenge and grace, a beautiful dance of shadows and light, echoing the timeless nature of seeking understanding. The knowledge argument against physicalism variant. There is a gentle whisper in the corridors of philosophy, a thought experiment that flows like a soft melody, weaving together the intricacies of the mind and body. The tale we explore today unfolds the knowledge argument against physicalism, a narrative that questions if the sum of physical facts can ever fully capture the fullness of experience. In this journey, we wander through the serene landscapes of thought and wonder about the profound truth of consciousness, exploring whether knowing all physical details of the world truly grants us access to the essence of what it means to feel and experience. Imagine a brilliant scholar named Mary, whose intellect and dedication have led her to a unique corner of scientific inquiry. Mary has spent her entire career immersed in the study of the brain and our perceptions, acquiring every single fact about the color red, the complexity of neural interactions, the wavelengths of light that create our visual experiences, and the biological mechanisms behind sight. Her world, however, is curiously devoid of a personal encounter with the color red because she has lived in a room of only black, white, and shades of gray. Every scientific text, every theory has been absorbed into her mind, yet there remains an uncharted territory beyond the physical, a territory called qualia. The narrative gently invites us to ponder. Even if Mary knew absolutely everything there was to know from a purely physical perspective, would she truly understand what it is like to witness a sunset bursting with hues of crimson and gold? This is the heart of the knowledge argument. Here the argument suggests there exists a gap between physical facts and experiential realities. It asks us to consider whether complete physical knowledge necessarily implies complete experiential knowledge. On a quiet evening, as the stars glisten overhead, one might recall that all scientific inquiry is born from curiosity. Consider the calm explanation of a physicist who explains how light scatters and refracts, revealing spectrum after spectrum in labs and textbooks. Yet this scientific explanation remains abstract until one stands beneath a vivid sky, letting the colors seep into the soul. The difference between reading a description and living the moment is both ineffable and transformative. It is this transformation which the knowledge argument brings into sharp focus. The argument takes a detour from mere empirical data to enter the realm of personal experience, a realm filled with subtle sensations, individual memories, and unique perspectives that cannot be fully expressed in a language of mere particles and forces. Mary stands as a symbol, a living testament not to ignorance of physical facts, but to the idea that there is an element of the human experience that eludes description in scientific terms. She represents every one of us who, even when armed with knowledge, finds that the experience itself resonates on a level that words, data, and physical laws simply cannot capture in their entirety. In the gentle cadence of reflective reasoning, one might note that physicalism, a dominant view in the philosophy of mind, posits the sufficiency of physical explanations for all phenomena, including the workings of consciousness. According to physicalism, every experience we have, every emotion we feel, and every color we perceive should ultimately be explainable by physical theories. The interplay of neurons, chemicals, and the mysteries of quantum mechanics. Yet, the knowledge argument offers a counterpoint to this notion, suggesting that something vital is missed when we reduce our experiences to mere contributions of physical processes. Imagine for a moment a painter who, despite an encyclopedic knowledge of pigments and techniques, suddenly steps out into a vibrant garden burst with life, colors dancing in the sunlight. The artist might grasp the science of how pigments mix and how light interacts with surfaces, yet the ethereal quality of the garden, the rustle of leaves, the passionate bloom of a rose, evokes emotions and insights that remain outside the realm of scientific description. Herein lies the delicate balance between understanding and living, between knowing facts and feeling them. The knowledge argument does not dismiss the marvels of physical science. Rather, it celebrates the beautiful complexity of human experience. It is not a denial of the advancements brought by science, but an invitation to appreciate that some aspects of our existence, like the essence of a memory or the taste of a summer breeze, are woven with the ineffable threads of consciousness. These threads, often too subtle for a microscope to catch, remind us that the world holds mysteries that extend beyond the confines of physical explanations. It is this poetic interplay between the concrete and the abstract that gives the knowledge argument its enduring allure. Philosophers have long debated whether there exists a realm of phenomenal facts, those that articulate not what the brain does, but what it makes us feel. On one hand, physicalism offers a comforting uniformity, asserting that everything, including vibrant experiences, will eventually be decoded into patterns of matter and energy. On the other hand, the knowledge argument stands as a sentinel for the uniqueness of personal experience, suggesting that even the most exhaustive scientific descriptions may leave us short of what it is to truly live the rainbow of sensations. Picture an ancient storyteller sitting by a softly lit hearth, narrating tales of faraway lands where reality and perception blend in mysterious ways. Within those stories lies an echo of the knowledge argument, the understanding that while science might map the terrains and chart the movements of the stars, it is the personal experience of wonder, the spark of recognition when one beholds beauty, that truly defines our humanity. This experiential wisdom, deeply interwoven with our very sense of self, resists reduction to mere physical terms. As the narrative flows like a gentle stream, consider the possibility that knowledge may come in layers. The lowest layer comprises factual understanding, the details, the measurements, the equations that define the physical world. Yet there exists a higher, more subtle stratum, a layer imbued with meaning and interpretation, the kind that nurtures empathy, art, and emotional depth. When Mary steps out of her monochrome haven and experiences the kaleidoscope of color, she discovers a new layer previously unbeknownst to her scientific mind. This moment of revelation is not simply the retrieval of another fact. It's an awakening to a deeper reality, a metaphorical sunrise in the landscape of her consciousness. The argument extends further into the modern debate on artificial intelligence and simulated experiences. Can a machine built solely on physical circuits and programmed decisions ever truly grasp the subjective vibe of an artist's passion or the bittersweet feeling of nostalgia? The knowledge argument gently challenges us to think that perhaps there are realms of emotion and qualitative perception that no mere algorithm can capture, regardless of the complexity of its programming. Even if an AI were fed every bit of data about human physiology and psychology, it might never experience the ineffable beauty of a sunset or the warmth of compassion that fills a heart when receiving a kind word from a friend. In this context, the narrative of the knowledge argument resonates like a timeless ballad, reminding us that while science equips us with magnificent maps of the universe, it might not be able to narrate every vivid detail of the inner landscape of the soul. The human experience is a dynamic tapestry, of sensory impressions, emotional resonances, and unspoken meanings, aspects that uplift our daily lives and remind us that our existence is filled with wonder beyond numerical representations. When we traverse philosophical landscapes, guided by the soft glow of introspection, we acknowledge that some of the most beautiful aspects of life are the ones we feel rather than the ones we quantify. The knowledge argument encourages us to maintain a curious balance, a willingness to be both a scientist and a poet. It calls upon us to examine the edges where the descriptive language of physics meets the evocative language of emotion, and where the understanding of structure is complemented by a celebration of experience. The debate on physicalism versus experiential knowledge thus unfolds as a dialogue between what can be measured and what can be felt, a gentle but profound conversation about the essence of being. It challenges us to accept that even a mind filled with scientific knowledge like Mary's finds itself awestruck by the transformation when a fact turns into an experience. Therein lies the grace of the human spirit, a spirit that can hold both the clarity of rational thought and the magnificence of wonder. As we come to the end of this reflective journey, one cannot help but be enchanted by the idea that life is more than a collection of physical processes. It is, above all, an odyssey of discovery, a persistent quest to understand that there exists a realm where pure facts merge with the warmth of personal perception, creating a tapestry that is as boundless as our imagination. Such a perspective invites not only scientific inquiry, but also a deep appreciation for the mystery of our own inner lives, a mystery that continues to inspire generations of thinkers, artists, and dreamers alike. In this dance between the tangible and the intangible, the knowledge argument stands as a timeless invitation to honor both reason and the ineffable beauty of existence, a reminder that while physical truths provide the framework, it is the colors of experience that give life its most profound meaning.
The puzzle of the heap, variant logic. In a quiet room, filled with the soft hum of a late evening, a gentle question weaves itself into the fabric of thought. What truly defines a heap? Imagine standing by the edge of a gentle stream, peering at a mound of sand slowly shifting shape with each subtle, imperceptible granule's departure. The paradox, often known as the Sorites paradox, beguiles the mind by asking how one can determinately say, "This is a heap," when adding or removing a single grain does not seem to alter the identity of what we call a heap. In this narrative journey through variant logic, we embrace the puzzle with a simple, cursive elegance, a calm invitation to explore the deeper mysteries hiding within everyday language and assumptions. Let us wander gently through a meadow of ideas, where every thought is another grain of sand contributing to a sprawling heap of contemplation. When we say that a collection of sand grains forms a heap, we are immediately met by the assumption that there exists a clear boundary between what qualifies as a heap and what does not. However, if one were to remove a single grain from a clearly defined heap, one that we wholeheartedly agree is a heap, the imperceptible difference challenges our conventional logic. The same happens when you add one more grain to what we know is not a heap. That solitary addition does not seem to cause a sudden metamorphosis into a heap. Such observations invite us to ask how concepts we rely upon are defined, and how our brains gracefully handle these gradual shifts with astonishing precision. Picture a tender story from ancient lore, where sages deliberated on the significance of incremental changes. They spoke of the many becoming one, and the one dissolving into many, an inevitable procession into ambiguity that has both puzzled and enriched human thought. The puzzle of the heap invites us to observe how our language, like a river, flows with natural, easy current, refusing to be confined rigidly by definitions. This conundrum teaches us that in the delicate balance of existence, our traditional binary categorizations often falter when confronted with subtle gradations. Our journey through variant logic is not aimed at undermining the reliability of language, but rather at celebrating its beautiful imperfection, a canvas where ambiguity dances with clarity in an eternal waltz. As we meander deeper into this realm of variant logic, it becomes clear that many paradoxes, like that of the heap, act as gentle mirrors reflecting the limits of our classical logic. Our minds, conditioned to view the universe in shades of clear-cut distinctions, this or that, on or off, begin to explore the fascinating realm of vagueness. In the simple act of thinking about which collection of sand forms a heap, we are forced to entertain that perhaps the world is not composed of neat boxes, but rather filled with fuzzy, swaying edges that defy exact measurement. The beauty of this revelation is that, much like a softly penned cursive script, our logic expands to embrace its complexities while remaining elegant and relatable. Consider the anecdote of a wise philosopher who, walking along a sandy beach at dusk, picked up a handful of sand and mused aloud about the nature of permanence. Each grain was a liminal truth, embodying both significance and insignificance in the grand spectrum of existence. Just as the individual grain of sand was lost in the grand tapestry of the beach, so too do our small increments of change become submerged in the larger continuum of ambiguity and meaning. This thought experiment gently nudges us to appreciate that certainty does not always stem from clearly defined boundaries. Sometimes, wisdom rests in the spaces between our well-articulated ideas. The heap paradox, with its mutable edges, offers a gentle lesson in humility. It tells us that our need for precise boundaries may sometimes lead to oversimplification of reality. For every single grain that seems to make no difference, there is an overwhelming tapestry of context and gradual change that defies immediate categorization. In everyday conversation, we are comforted by the idea that our language can neatly segment thoughts into what is and what is not. But when we turn our attentive gaze to the philosophy of vagueness, we see a truth that is as elegant as it is disconcerting. The world is full of gradual transitions rather than abrupt changes. It is in this twilight zone of gradual change that our organic human sense of understanding resides. We recognize that in nature, and even in human relationships, the lines are often blurred. The puzzle of the heap reflects in the soft color transitions of a sunset, where each moment delicately fades into the next without a clear-cut boundary. Our emotional experiences, too, are not subject to strict partitions, but rather ebb and flow like the gentle tides of an endless ocean. This realization fosters a deep appreciation for the inherent fluidity of life, a tender ambiguity that requires us to be patient and kind in our judgments. This philosophical contemplation also beckons us to reconsider our social constructs and systems. When we think about labeling and categorizing aspects of our lives, whether through career titles, social statuses, or even personal interests, we are unwittingly engaging in a form of the heap paradox. Much like the removal or addition of a single grain from a heap does not alter its fundamental nature, the incremental changes in our personal journey do not suddenly transform us from one rigid state to another. Instead, they are part of a continuous, evolving process. The recognition of this fluidity empowers us to embrace uncertainty, to be carried along by the ever-changing currents of life with the quiet assurance of deep understanding. In the sphere of modern logical thought, attempts to carve out solutions to the heap paradox have led to the development of fuzzy logic, a system that mimics the natural gradation we observe in life. Fuzzy logic transcends the binary constraints of classical logic by admitting degrees of truth, much like the soft, curving lines of a carefully penned script. It accepts that realities often lie in a spectrum, where something can be both somewhat true and somewhat false at the same time. This approach does not seek to eliminate vagueness, but rather to incorporate it as an integral part of how we understand the world. Yet, the charm of the puzzle lies in its resistance to easy resolution. The paradox remains a fascinating reminder of the limits of our language and thought. By challenging our need for decisive labels, it encourages us to appreciate every step in the unfolding process, each as meaningful as the next. The gradual and often imperceptible change is not a failure of definition, but a celebration of the dynamic nature of existence, a place where the mind can leisurely savor the beauty of nuance. Let us conclude our reflective journey by acknowledging that the puzzle of the heap, rather than being an unresolved flaw in logic, is instead a poetic invitation to see the world with gentle eyes. It whispers to us that sometimes in life, the smallest changes hold the secret to the grandest transformations. Our understanding is enriched when we allow ourselves the freedom to dwell in the uncertain, to enjoy the delicate continuum between extremes. In embracing the vagueness, we find a narrative that is as warm and comforting as a handwritten note from an old friend. A reminder that not all truths must be confined to the stark contrasts of black and white, but may instead blossom in the soft and flowing hues of gentle, variant logic. The problem of intentionality. The landscape of our minds is awash with the subtle interplay of thoughts and meanings, a delicate dance that has spurred curious conversations among philosophers for centuries. In the midst of this rich tapestry lies the problem of intentionality, a puzzle that seeks to uncover how our mental states seem to point beyond themselves, to objects, events, or ideas in the world. When we speak of our beliefs, our desires, and our hopes, we are naturally referring to something outside of our own mental existence, and that very aboutness is what the problem of intentionality invites us to explore. Imagine sitting by a quiet river at twilight, where the interplay of light and shadow mirrors the way our thoughts reflect, or might even try to reference the world outside our inner reflections. The gentle murmur of water and the rustle of leaves become symbols of how even the simplest ideas are connected to something external. This connection, however, is not easily pinned down. How can something that exists only within your mind accurately match or refer to something tangible in the world? What mechanisms allow a thought to capture the essence of a sunset, a tree, or an abstract idea like freedom? These inquiries form the nucleus of the problem of intentionality. The challenge begins with the concept that mental phenomena inherently possess what is known as intentionality, the capacity to be about or directed towards something. When you think of a loved one, the thought reaches out toward that person even if they are miles away. This is not merely a series of chemical reactions, but rather an inner representation that carries with it a kind of semantic load, a meaning that transcends the mere firing of neurons. It is as if your mind is painting a picture that is simultaneously vivid and elusive, one that carries the properties of both abstraction and realistic detail. Many philosophers, from Franz Brentano to Edmund Husserl, have pondered this very idea, suggesting that the mind is fundamentally unique because every mental state inherently possesses this aboutness. Brentano, for example, famously argued that intentionality is the mark of the mental, setting intentional states apart from physical events. There is always something present, a referent that your thoughts aim toward. But this allure of directionality asks us to probe even deeper. How can something as fleeting as a thought have a stable, enduring reference in a world of ever-changing perceptions and context? Consider the analogy of a telescope gazing at the stars. Just as the telescope focuses on a distant constellation, gathering light and returning an image, our mental states focus on objects and ideas, reassembling their essence inside our minds. However, unlike a telescope, whose lens is fixed and predictable, the mind is fluid, its contours shaped by personal experiences, emotions, and intricate memories. The same image captured by one person's mental telescope might be entirely different when seen through another's. The intentional arrow of thought, therefore, remains a dynamic construct, blending the objective qualities of the external world with the subjective hues of our inner experience. At the heart of this exploration lies a series of fascinating questions. How do our concepts and representations maintain their consistency in a fluid mental landscape? Can we ever truly capture the essence of an object or idea when it inevitably changes under the influence of our own perceptions? Philosophers have offered a variety of responses, often comparing intentionality to the process of photographing a moving subject. The photograph, though static, captures only a moment in time, a snapshot that hints at but never fully encapsulates the subject's inherent motion and change. Similarly, intentional acts are not static. They are fleeting attempts to capture a larger reality that constantly eludes complete understanding. The problem of intentionality extends beyond mere theoretical musings. It touches on the very essence of how we communicate. Language, an extraordinary tool for human expression, is imbued with intentionality. Every sentence we utter is designed to evoke a specific meaning or image in the mind of the listener. When we say, "The sky is blue," we are not just describing what we see. We are pointing toward an observable world, structuring a perception that belongs both to us and to anyone else who shares the same light. Yet this shared experience is never perfectly identical, and thus our words sometimes fall short of capturing the full richness of our intended meaning. One might wonder how we bridge the gap between the private contents of our mind and the objective world we inhabit. A famous example in this regard is the philosophical thought experiment known as the brain in a vat. Picture a scenario where a brain isolated from any body is kept alive in a vat, with its experiences simulated by a computer. The brain might have all the sensations of a rich external world, yet it remains physically detached from any direct interaction with the environment it perceives. If the brain's thoughts have intentionality, what do they really refer to? Is the computer-generated environment as real as the world we assume we live in? This thought experiment underscores the challenge of linking internal experiences to an external referent that may not even exist in the way we traditionally imagine. In another vein, artists and poets have long tapped into the mysterious qualities of intentionality. evoking emotions that are as intangible as they are powerful. A poet might compare love to a fire that burns with an intense inner light, yet manifests itself physically only through its warmth and glow. Just as a flame illuminates the darkness, intentionality illuminates the space between our subjective experiences and the external objects they seek to capture. Our desires, our memories, and even our simple observations are all marked by an inherent striving to represent something more than themselves, to gift them with a deeper, almost sacred significance. This poetic quality of intentionality also has its darker, more perplexing aspects. Consider the feelings of longing or melancholia, where one's thoughts appear to be perpetually reaching for a lost or unattainable ideal. It is as if intentionality sometimes leads us on quests that defy completion, chasing after shadows or mirages in the vast desert of our inner lives. The gap between what is represented in our minds and what truly exists in the external world can be both vast and disconcerting. In such moments, the beauty of intentionality is interwoven with a poignant reminder of human fallibility and the limits of perception. Yet, there is a strange comfort in this very imperfection. It is in the endless, unsolvable quest for perfect correspondence between the inner imagination and the external world that we find a reflection of our human condition. Ever striving, ever yearning to connect, to understand, and to bridge the divide between thought and reality. This gap, while seemingly insurmountable, is also the fuel for creativity and philosophical inquiry. It is the challenge that has led philosophers, scientists, and artists alike to continuously refine their understanding of the mind and its relation to the world. Advancing in our exploration, we might imagine an ancient library filled with countless scrolls and manuscripts. Each text represents a different perspective on intentionality, some filled with scientific precision, others with mystical wonder, and still others with poetic metaphor. As you wander through aisles of thought and inquiry, the air around you is rich with the shared endeavors of past generations, each voice contributing to the ever-evolving tapestry of human understanding. In this grand symphony of ideas, intentionality plays the role of both the composer and the motif, guiding the notes of meaning from the subtle vibrations of individual experience to the harmonious chords of universal truth. The problem of intentionality, with its elusive nature and persistent ambiguity, inspires us to continually question and reimagine the fabric of our existence. It reminds us that our thoughts, no matter how complex or fleeting, invariably strive to connect with a world that remains just out of reach, a world that is as rich in mystery as it is in beauty. And in this striving, we discover not only the limits of our understanding, but also the boundless potential of our imagination. As we step back from our philosophical wanderings, the realization dawns that the problem of intentionality is not a puzzle to be solved in the simple, unyielding sense of a mathematical equation. Instead, it is a lifelong dialogue with ourselves and the universe, a conversation where each answer gives rise to new questions and each inquiry deepens the wonder of existence. The journey through intentionality is less about arriving at a definitive destination than about roaming freely through the realms of thought, emotion, and profound curiosity. In the quiet moments of reflection, as you consider your own inner world and the myriad thoughts that traverse its landscape, you may begin to see intentionality as a metaphor for life itself, an ever-reaching quest to connect the inner self with the larger cosmos. to find meaning in the spaces between, and to celebrate the beauty of our continual search for understanding. The problem of intentionality thus transforms from a philosophical conundrum into a gentle invitation, a call to explore, to embrace the unfolding mystery of existence, and to marvel at the extraordinary ability of our minds to hold worlds within themselves. The temporal parts theory. In a quiet moment under a starlit sky, one might find themselves pondering the true nature of existence, a journey that meanders through the corridors of time and space. The temporal parts theory gently invites us to see our lives, our objects, and even the very essence of who we are, as something more like a flowing tapestry woven from countless fleeting moments, rather than viewing an object as a singular, continuous presence. This theory whispers that it is, in fact, a collection of temporal parts, each slice of time contributing to the whole narrative of its existence. Imagine a long scroll of parchment, unfurled and etched with elegant cursive script. Each word on that scroll represents a moment in time, a small yet vital element of the overall story. Just as the beautiful calligraphy forms an elegant poem piece by piece, the temporal parts theory tells us that every entity is an aggregate of its individual instance, each leaving an indelible mark on its identity. Much like art, composed with tender strokes, every moment contributes to the grand portrait of an object or person. This view suggests that to understand the essence of being, one must embrace the notion that our identities are not static, but rather continue to evolve with the seamless passage of time. As the evening deepens and the reflections grow richer, consider the simple act of watching a river flow gently along its course. At any moment, one might think of the river as a single, unified body. Yet, upon closer inspection, it becomes clear that every droplet of water is part of a continuous journey. Just as the river is formed by countless droplets, each transient in its own existence, so too are the objects and beings around us a collage of momentary parts. The temporal parts theory encourages us to envision this continuum as a series of snapshots, each one a fragment of what once was, a delicate imprint that makes the whole complete. This philosophical outlook offers a poetic way of considering change and identity. Take, for instance, a grand oak tree that has weathered many seasons. Each ring within its trunk tells a story of time, a memory of spring rains, summer heat, autumn chills, and winter frost. The tree, when observed in its entirety, is not merely a static entity, but a mosaic of the moments that have defined its existence. From the tender sprout in its youth to its imposing ancient figure in later years, the temporal parts theory illuminates how every moment contributes to its ongoing story, forming a unified identity that is both complex and ever-changing. Let us wander further down this meandering path of thought, exploring the implications of this theory in the realm of human experience. Our lives, too, can be seen as a series of poems written over time. Each memory, a childhood laugh, a tearful farewell, a moment of triumph, adds depth to our character. Just as an artist layers delicate colors onto a canvas, our experiences overlap to create a rich picture of who we are. In this way, the temporal parts theory gracefully reframes the idea of personal identity. Rather than being an immutable essence, we are dynamic narratives, perpetually in the process of becoming. An enchanting analogy is to think of our experiences as musical notes in a symphony. Each note, briefly resonating in the concert hall of life, contributes to a larger, harmonious composition. A single note might be fleeting, yet its significance is bound to the melody that unfolds over time. The interplay between these moments creates a rhythm, a beat that defines our journey. Even moments that seem insignificant on their own weave into the fabric of our existence, shaping the evolving story that is uniquely ours. This perspective also prompts us to reflect on the nature of change itself, such as the slow, inevitable transformation of a sculpture over time. Consider a figure carved from stone, gradually eroded by the elements. What remains is not the original block of stone, but a series of layered changes, each sculpting a new form. Every gust of wind, every caress of rain contributes to the final masterpiece. Similarly, the temporal parts theory suggests that every moment, every slight alteration, adds a new layer to the essence of what we observe, whether it is a person, a piece of art, or even a memory in our minds. There is a tender beauty in recognizing that identity is not a fixed point, but a journey. In the realm of relationships, for example, the people we care about transform through a series of moments accumulated over time. The friend you met in a sunlit park might evolve into a confidant who shares your deepest secrets. And these shifts are not sudden, but are built upon countless interactions, shared laughter, and quiet moments of understanding. Each of these interactions becomes a temporal part, a necessary piece of the puzzle that forms the complete image of who they are. It's as if each shared smile and whispered word contributes a luminous brushstroke on a grand, unfolding canvas. The temporal parts theory also gently reminds us that our perceptions of the past and the future are interwoven into our present identity. Often, we might think of our past as a closed chapter, a series of events that simply happen. Yet this theory invites us to see our past as an integral part of who we are today, a repository of temporal parts that continue to live within us. Every memory is a delicate thread that connects us to a different time, a different version of ourselves that coexists within the present moment. This seamless integration of past, present, and future can provide a comforting sense of continuity, suggesting that even as we evolve, the mosaic of who we are remains intricately bound to every moment we have experienced. In a similar vein, contemplating the future through the lens of the temporal parts theory can be equally inspiring. Envision the future as a canvas yet to be painted, each potential moment a possible brushstroke that will define the person yet to be. As we stand on the threshold of what is to come, we become co-creators of our destiny, with every decision and experience adding new color and texture to an ever-unfolding masterpiece. Here, hope resides in the promise that every passing second contributes to a narrative that is both unpredictable and beautifully orchestrated. Some thinkers liken this theory to the fragments of a memorable dream. In the hazy recollection of such dreams, fragments of surreal imagery hint at a narrative that is larger and more profound than the sum of its parts. The temporal parts theory, in its most graceful form, suggests a similar nature of existence, an ongoing dream where every moment is a fleeting yet essential vignette in the grand epic of life. Each snapshot, no matter how ephemeral, carries within it the seed of identity, nurturing the continuity that we often take for granted. Ultimately, the temporal parts theory provides not only a framework to contemplate existence, but also a poetic solace in the face of change. It reassures us that even as we drift through time, each moment matters. Every second is a delicate verse in the unfolding poetry of life. In embracing this idea, we can find comfort in the knowledge that our identities are not diminished by change, but enriched by it, layer upon exquisite layer. The beauty of this theory lies in its invitation to live mindfully, to cherish the fleeting, the transient, and the ever-evolving. It encourages us to recognize that every moment, no matter how small, is a necessary part of a larger narrative, a continuous song of becoming. And so, as you wander through the rhythms of day and night, may you embrace the temporal dance of life, knowing that in every ephemeral moment resides a testament to the intricate, timeless art of existence. The argument from luck, free will. In a soft-lit room, filled with gentle reflections of midnight thoughts, we begin our exploration into a mystery that has puzzled minds for centuries. The subtle interplay between free will and chance. A delicate dance that philosophers call the argument from luck. This idea is both enchanting and confounding, offering a window into how the randomness of existence might intertwine with the choices we believe to be our own. Picture an ancient tapestry, intricately woven with threads of fate and spontaneity. Every thread is a decision, every knot a twist of chance, and the overall design becomes a portrait of our lives. Some look closely at this tapestry and wonder, are the patterns predetermined? Or do we have the genuine freedom to create them as we please? It is here that the argument from luck suggests a profound possibility that the appearance of free will might be, at least in part, the result of luck, a cosmic lottery that influences what we consider our deliberate choices. Across centuries, thinkers have entertained this notion. Imagine a great philosophical salon where minds gather beneath the soft glow of candlelight, discussing whether the forces that shape our destiny are under our control or simply random occurrences that we mistake for purpose. The argument from luck reminds us that even when we take deliberate steps, unseen variables, from the intersection of chance encounters to the unpredictable swirl of cosmic probabilities, might nudge us toward one outcome over another. In this interpretation, free will is not an isolated power, but a confluence of our intentions and the whims of fate. Let's step into a quiet daybreak in a bustling city. As the sun rises, people awaken, each following routines that feel uniquely personal. One might choose a particular route to work, not because every factor was rigged by the cosmos, but because a myriad of small, unpredictable events, a conversation with a neighbor, the sound of distant music, nudged that decision along. The argument from luck suggests that sometimes what we attribute to personal choice might instead be the cumulative effect of countless random influences. This realization can be both liberating and a little unsettling, for it challenges the notion that we are the sole architects of our destinies. Consider the example of a musician practicing a familiar composition. Each note, each pause is deliberate, yet the musician might never fully escape the influence of chance. Perhaps the air's humidity affects the sound of the instrument, or a stray sound from outside intrudes into the performance, altering its course. In a similar way, our decisions as human beings can be seen as the result of factors we neither control nor might even notice. It is as if we are all performing a symphony where every note is partially directed by unconscious improvisation, where free will exists, but it dances with luck. To delve deeper into this notion, let us wander through the corridors of everyday experience. When faced with a critical decision, such as choosing a career path or deciding whom to love, we often imagine that our inner voice or rational mind is leading us along a clear, logical line. Yet the argument from luck whispers that hidden influences, chance events, unforeseen opportunities may play a decisive role in these decisions. For example, a chance meeting on a rainy street corner might completely redirect one's life, steering a person in a direction they would not have chosen under strictly rational considerations. In this light, luck appears as an unseen guide, sprinkling its influence over decisions that seem wholly ours. The idea naturally extends into the realm of moral responsibility. If our actions are significantly shaped by random factors, one might wonder to what extent we can be held accountable for them. Imagine a craftsman whose skill is unparalleled, but who occasionally errs, not out of carelessness, but due to unforeseen conditions, a sudden gust of wind that scatters his work, or a fleeting distraction that alters his concentration. Each human being, no matter how deliberate their choices may seem, lives in a world where unpredictable elements can seep into every decision. The argument from luck does not deny that we experience life as a series of choices, but suggests that those choices may arise from a mixture of intention and chance, a duality that challenges the neat separation of fate and freedom. This line of thought can be as enlightening as it is humbling. The serenity that comes from understanding the interplay of free will and luck is like standing at the edge of a vast sea, where waves of randomness meet the steady current of personal desire. The rhythmic sound of the surf teaches us that life is governed by both the deliberate strokes of our own hands and the unpredictable gusts of wind. In acknowledging this, we become more compassionate, not only towards ourselves but towards others, as we recognize that everyone is subject to the caprices of fortune. It allows us to appreciate how circumstances beyond control can shape our choices, and reminds us to value the emerging beauty in our very unpredictability. Throughout history, various schools of thought have embraced this synthesis. Some argue that no matter how random our lives may appear, there is still room for moral agency, suggesting that even if luck influences our decisions, our conscious awareness can navigate this randomness with grace and creativity. Others ponder whether the mere illusion of free will might be our brain's way of coping with an inherently chaotic universe, a comforting narrative to explain why we feel, deep down, that we are in control. In the quiet recesses of a moonlit study, one could sit quietly, pondering whether free will is truly a gift or simply an evolved mechanism to face the indeterminate whims of a capricious cosmos. To give another analogy, consider a gardener tending to a wild patch of land. The gardener plants seeds with care and nurtures them with dedication. Yet, despite the best efforts and precise planning, the garden thrives and blooms in ways that might be entirely unexpected. Some plants might flourish unexpectedly, while others struggle, all because of subtle shifts in weather, soil condition, or even the chance presence of a visiting bird. In this garden of life, free will is the seed, planted with purpose, while luck is the unpredictable yet natural force that weaves its magic, ensuring that the outcome remains a mystery until it unfolds. The gardener cannot control every element. However, in the shared space between careful planning and randomness, life blossoms beautifully. The argument from luck invites us to reframe the conversations about control, destiny, and responsibility. It is not a call to nihilism, that nothing matters because everything is left to chance, but rather a recognition that our lives are richer, more complex tapestries than simple, binary notions of free will would suggest. Both the hand of deliberate intent and the whisper of serendipity are necessary threads that create meaningful narratives. This way of thinking may empower individuals to embrace uncertainty, viewing life not as a series of isolated choices, but as a fluid journey composed of both intent and accident. As we meander through these thoughts, the boundaries between free will and randomness begin to blur, revealing an intricate pattern where both coexist harmoniously. Perhaps, in the grand scheme of things, what we call free will is partly a celebration of our ability to adapt and respond to the unpredictable wonders of existence. Our minds, capable of reason and reflection, navigate the scenic byways of chance with a blend of courage and spontaneity, crafting a life that is equal parts planned and serendipitous. In the cool stillness of a reflective evening, we come to appreciate that the argument from luck is, in its own right, a call to humility. It implores us to accept that while our decisions are significant, they might also be touched by the unpredictable artistry of chance. This realization does not diminish personal responsibility. Rather, it enriches our understanding of the mysterious forces that sculpt our lives. It is a poetic reminder that, beyond our calculated endeavors, we inhabit a world where the beauty of the unforeseen is always around the corner, ready to turn even the best laid plans into a delightful surprise. By embracing this balance, we may learn to be kinder with ourselves and patient with the unfolding of life. For in every twist of fate, in every gentle stroke of luck, there is a lesson in humility and wonder. The argument from luck thus becomes a meditation on the nature of human existence, a continuous interplay of destiny and desire, a synergistic dance that makes each moment uniquely unpredictable. In recognizing this, we are invited not to fear the uncertain, but to see it as a vital part of our own creative agency, a magnificent interplay between what we plan and what the universe unfolds. Let the image of the ancient tapestry and the unpredictable garden remain as lasting symbols of our journey. In acknowledging that free will may be as much about navigating the whims of chance as it is about exercising intent, we come closer to understanding the profound and poetic essence of existence. The subtlety of this argument helps us realize that in the confluence of our deliberate choices and the serendipitous gifts of the universe, we truly learn to cherish the mystery and beauty of being alive. The paradox of tragedy. There is a quiet allure found within the shadows of sorrow, a hidden beauty in the tales of despair that echo across time. The paradox of tragedy asks us to delve into the unsettling dance between grief and the pleasure we take in its portrayal. Consider a night when the sky is cloaked in inky darkness and the only light comes from the soft glow of distant stars. In such moments, our minds wanders to the stories of old tragedies, the narratives that remind us of human suffering, loss, and the ultimate fragility of existence. It is within these narratives that we find our paradox. The more grievous the losses depicted, the deeper the emotional engagement, offering a sense of catharsis, connection, and even beauty. Throughout the ages, mankind has been drawn to tragic stories, not out of a desire to wallow in despair, but rather to see reflections of our human condition. The ancient Greeks, for instance, held their tragic plays in reverence, understanding that through the suffering of others, a communal purity was achieved. In the theater, we witness heroes who fall from grace, who face insurmountable odds, and ultimately pay the high price of their passions or inevitabilities. There is a delicate tension here. We are moved by the greatness and grandeur of these failures, feeling simultaneously sorrow and admiration. This seeming contradiction is at the very core of the paradox of tragedy, a celebration of our vulnerabilities as much as a reminder of our resilience. Imagine strolling along a peaceful stream on a quiet afternoon, where the rustling leaves and the gentle murmurs of water create a soothing background. The thoughts of past sorrows might seem to mingle with the sound, echoing memories of times when life was harsh, yet heartbreakingly beautiful. Much like this serene setting that masks hidden depths beneath the calm surface, tragic art invites us to explore the dark and the painful, while ultimately guiding us towards deeper insights into love, fate, and mortality. In every line of a poem where loss is mourned, or every scene of a play where despair is depicted, there is an invitation to reflect on our own experiences. It stirs the soul in a way that finely balanced suffering can be seen as a testament to life's passionate intensity. The paradox becomes evident when one considers the dual role tragedy plays in our lives. On one hand, it reminds us of life's inherent frailty, a cautionary tale of what may come. On the other, it soothes our deepest longings for meaning. The sorrow that we witness in tragic stories affirms that we are part of a larger narrative, rich with complexities and contradictions. There is a peculiar warmth in shared melancholia, a secret bond that connects every individual who finds solace in the human experience expressed through tragedy. When we are enveloped by the sorrow on stage or in literature, it is almost as if the weight of the world is lightened by knowing that pain is not an isolated condition, but a universal truth that ties us all together. In the realm of music, the somber melodies of a requiem, the mournful strains of a cello, or the soft whisper of a piano in a dimly lit room evoke this timeless connection with our own struggles. The art of tragedy is not solely about recounting misery. It is more about transmuting suffering into something transcendent. Just as a sculptor chisels a block of marble to reveal a form hidden within, tragedy strips away the superficial layers of our existence to expose the raw, unvarnished beauty of our emotional depths. We find in these moments a profound understanding that life is not merely a series of joyful peaks, but a blend of light and shadow, a tapestry woven with threads of both despair and hope. This narrative of tragedy, and the enjoyment many derive from it, could appear to contradict the very nature of human instinct. Our minds are wired to avoid pain, to seek comfort. Yet we find ourselves irresistibly drawn to the agonizing depictions of loss. The answer may reside in the idea that experiencing a tragedy vicariously allows for a controlled encounter with pain, a safe space in which we can process and understand our emotions without bearing the full brunt of lived sorrow. In this gentle interplay, our imagination becomes a theater where we confront, understand, and ultimately accept that suffering is an integral part of life. Moreover, tragedy becomes a mirror, reflecting our inner turmoil and unspoken questions about existence. Through it, we contemplate the inevitability of fate and the shadows that follow every moment of joy. The tragic narrative forces a confrontation with our mortality, yet within that confrontation, there lies a sublimity. We start to see that the path to authenticity is paved not solely through triumph, but through the acceptance of our imperfections, our losses, and our wounds. This recognition breeds empathy, in a closer connection with others who, too, have had to wrestle with their own share of hardship. In sharing these emotional experiences, even if only through stories, we create bonds that transcend the superficial barriers imposed by daily life. The interplay of tragedy within our cultural expressions can be seen in various forms of art and media. A classic novel, a heart-wrenching film, or a beautifully tragic painting all serve as conduits for exploring the bittersweet nature of our existence. Consider the works of Shakespeare, especially his greatest tragedies. The characters in his plays are not simply doomed by fate. They are etched with a depth that makes their eventual downfall all the more poignant and transformative. In their suffering, we see reflections of our own hearts, and in their demise, we find a cathartic release that renews our spirit. The beauty of their stories lies in their capacity to evoke powerful emotions while simultaneously offering a form of wisdom drawn from the crucible of human experience. A deeper layer of the paradox is revealed when we contemplate the purpose of tragedy. If life were free from sorrow, would art still possess its richest hues of meaning? The tension between suffering and beauty is not an accident. It appears to be a fundamental aspect of how we understand the world. Through tragedy, we learn that to be truly alive is to accept the coexistence of joy and pain. In this balance, every sorrowful note in a symphony, every tear shed over a work of art, and every melancholic reflection on life contributes to an overall portrait of what it means to be human. It is a reminder that beauty is not diminished by hardship. Rather, it is often most vibrant where the light of hope struggles to break through the darkness. Even in our everyday lives, the incidental echoes of tragedy, missed opportunities, painful goodbyes, and quiet regrets resonate deeply within us. In these moments, we experience a microcosm of the larger narrative of human existence. The simple act of listening to a friend recount a tale of loss, or sitting in silence as a family member shares memories of a cherished past, are instances where the paradox of tragedy is lived out. We find that these experiences, though laden with sorrow, enrich our capacity for empathy and broaden our ability to connect with the myriad stories that form the grand mosaic of life. Perhaps the paradox of tragedy ultimately lies in its transformative power. It teaches us that in confronting our most profound sorrows, we also uncover a reservoir of strength and resilience. It is in the quiet acceptance of our fragility that we discover the courage to celebrate the beauty of our existence. Through the lens of tragedy, we learn that even the deepest wounds can give rise to a renewal of spirit, a rebirth of understanding that brings with it a softened, more compassionate view of the world. This embrace of sorrow does not lead us into nihilism. Rather, it endows us with a nuanced appreciation for life. It encourages us to acknowledge that every moment is as fleeting as it is delicate, inviting us to treasure our connections, our memories, and the very imperfection of our journey. In doing so, we come to understand that tragedy is not a curse, but a vital narrative thread that weaves our shared humanity together. Therein lies the poetic secret of tragedy, the realization that by allowing ourselves to be moved by sorrow, we are actually celebrating the profound complexity of being alive. Pain and beauty, despair and hope exist not in opposition, but in a delicate, inseparable balance. As we navigate through the tapestry of life, we find that each tear and every smile is an integral note in the symphony of existence.